Chapter 9. Ming Ming, didn't I tell you to call me Big Sister Ryue? Try not to mention the word dragon outside. The cold voice seemed to be emotionless, but the white-clothed beauty looked at Ji Ming Ming with a very gentle gaze. Although she was only 5 years older than Ming Ming Ji, it looked like she was looking at her own child. Ming Ming Ji stuck out her tongue and said, I know, Big Sister Ryue. I just can't remember who asked you to be a dragon. The white-clothed beauty said indifferently, He is Kirin? Grandmaster has called me. Ming Ming Ji nodded. When she turned around and saw Chi Yu's face that looked like a pig, she wanted to go up and slap him a few times. This guy actually completely forgot what she said. She hurriedly let go of the white-clothed beauty's hand and quickly ran to Chi Yu's side. She gave him a look and said, Yes, Big Sister Ryue, he is Kirin. The white-clothed beauty nodded and said, All right, bring him in. After saying that, she just calmly looked at Chi Yu and returned to the villa. You're courting death. Ming Ming pinched Chi Yu hard. Chi Yu was in pain. The white-clothed beauty had already disappeared. Only then did he wake up. Beautiful, really beautiful. Such a hot body. I don't know what it feels like to hug. Ming Ming Ji rolled her eyes. You might as well go die. You even dare to take liberties with Big Sister Ryue. I think you're not far from death. Big Sister Ryue is indeed a great beauty, but her temper is as hot as her body. I'm too lazy to care about you. In any case, you're on your own. Don't. Chi Yu quickly grabbed Ming Ming, who was about to turn around and leave, and said in a low voice, Ming Ming, why didn't you tell me that dragon is a woman, and a beauty at that? Ji Ming Ming said helplessly. Anyway, you must be careful. Sister Ryue is the CEO of a big company. She has always been known for her iron face. I once met a guy who wanted to pursue her. I don't know what Sister Ryue did, but that guy later lay in the hospital for 3 months. After that, he trembled all over when he saw a woman. Think about it yourself. Sister Ryue's full name is Hai Ryue. According to the Zodiac, you should be able to calculate how old she is. Let's go. Sister Ryue doesn't like to wait for people. She didn't really blame Chi Yu. After a short period of contact, she already understood what kind of person Chi Yu was. Although he was always flirting with women, he was the kind of person who didn't have the guts to do it. Moreover, he wasn't too bad. The two walked into the villa. As soon as they entered the door, they saw a huge hall. 2 servants in white clothes and black pants came over and handed a hot towel to each of them. They also took the luggage from Ji Ming Ming's hands. Chi Yu wiped his face as he looked around. The decorations in the hall were completely white. A circle of 6 huge white marble pillars supported the center beam of the villa. The floor was paved with milky white marble. Together with the white fireplace at the side, it was very European style. In the center of the room, there was a dragon statue. It was a sparkling white 5-clawed dragon with a pair of sapphire dragon eyes. On one side of the hall, there were 4 3-seater sofas, forming a semi-arc. At this time, Hai Ryue was sitting on one of the sofas. She held a bright red drink in her hand. She drank it slowly as if she was drinking blood. The red drink formed a sharp contrast with her white clothes, adding a bit of elegance to the elegance. In the past, Chi Yu couldn't even think of a villa of this level, let alone see it. Please take a seat. Hai Ryue's voice was very pleasant to listen to. However, that faint coldness made people feel a bit unapproachable. Chi Yu and Ji Ming Ming sat on a sofa beside Hai Ryue. Ming Ming said, Sister Ryue, we just returned to the capital. Chi Yu's place is too bad. Let him stay here with you. Hai Ryue nodded and said, I've already arranged it. I've also arranged the school that you're going to attend. Ming Ming, if you're willing, you can also stay here. Ji Ming Ming giggled and said, It's okay. I haven't been home much these few years. I should go back to accompany my parents. However, I'll come back often. Sister Ryue, I'll leave him to you. Hai Ryue glanced at Chi Yu and said, Chi Yu male, 19 years old. He grew up in the Jingshan orphanage in the capital. He left the orphanage at the age of 14 to live on his own. He didn't graduate from junior high school and entered the society. He rented a basement in the Royal View district with social relief money. He usually idles around and belongs to the society. 1.5 months ago, he beat up the son of the city's police chief and ran to the bed. Chiyu frowned slightly and said, "Miss, do you have a household registration?" Ryue's eyes flashed coldly. "I don't want to hear the word miss again. Please call me by my name. I'm Ryue." Chiyu sat on the sofa and said, "If I don't call you miss, should I call you mister? I'm not saying that you're that kind of Mississippi. Why are you so agitated? It seems that I'm the king of the Zodiac." Although Ryue was a beauty, her cold feeling made Chiyu very uncomfortable. When he first met Ming Ming, although Ming Ming's attitude towards him wasn't very good, it wasn't like Ryue's innate coldness. Ryue said indifferently, "If you can beat me, I'll admit that you're the king of the Zodiac and I'll be at your disposal. However, before that, you don't have the power to order me." Ji Ming Ming saw that the atmosphere was a little tense and quickly said, "Sister Rhea, in fact, Chiyu is still a very good person. He just came into contact with our world and needs time to adapt. You should accommodate him a little more." Ryue said with a straight face, "In my dictionary, there's no such thing as accommodation. Right is right. Wrong is wrong. Ming Ming, don't you want to go home? I think you should go. I'll send a car to send you. Go back and say hello to Uncle and Annie for me. As for this person, I have my own arrangements. When school starts at the end of August, you can go to school together." Ji Ming Ming stuck out her tongue and looked at Chiyu with pity. She stood up and said, "Then I'll go back first. Sister Ryue, I'll leave him to you." Ryue made a gesture and immediately a servant helped Ming Ming carry her luggage out of the door. Chiyu stood up and sent Ming Ming to the door. Before Ming Ming left, she whispered to him, "You must remember what I said. Don't make Sister Ryue angry. Otherwise, you'll only be making things difficult for yourself. Sister Ryue will also teach you the ascending Qilin technique. Her teachings will definitely be better than mine." Chiyu quietly pinched Ming Ming's waist and winked. "Come and see me when you have time. I'll be here, don't worry." After Ji Ming Ming left, the atmosphere in the hall seemed to become more solemn. Ryue didn't know when there was something like a remote control in her hand. She pressed it twice, and a minute later, an old man wearing a Chinese tang suit came down from upstairs. The green tang suit looked very harmonious on him. His snow-white hair showed his age, but his face was very ruddy and there were not many wrinkles. His back was straight, and his eyes were bright and full of expression. "Miss, you were looking for me?" The old man walked to Ryue's side and bowed respectfully. Ryue stood up, and her voice was obviously much softer. "Uncle Zhou, Mr. Qi will be living here in the future. Arrange a room for him, then find him a set of training clothes and bring him to my training room." "Yes, Mississippi." After Ryue finished giving instructions, she didn't even look at Chiyu and turned to go upstairs. Chiyu curled his lips and thought to himself, "What are you so arrogant for? You just have some money. Don't put on airs in front of me." Uncle Zhou walked a few steps to Chiyu's side and said, "Mr. Qi, please follow me." Chiyu smiled and said, "Hello, Uncle Zhou." At first glance, Uncle Zhou seemed to be a very strict person. Although he didn't look kind, Chiyu always had a little more respect for the elders. Uncle Zhou took Chiyu to a room on the second floor of the villa. The layout of the room was very similar to that of the hall. Everything needed was available. There was a simple, small living room. Next to the living room was a bathroom, and inside was a bedroom. The bed in the bedroom was very big, enough to sleep 3 people. The white bedding was brand new and spotless. For Chiyu, who was used to living in a dog kennel, it was really a little uncomfortable. Throwing his small bag aside, Chiyu directly threw himself on the bed, regardless of Uncle Zhou beside him. The bed was not very soft, but it was very elastic and very comfortable to lie on. After not sleeping for the whole night, Chiyu suddenly felt tired. "Thank you, Uncle Zhou. This bed is very comfortable." Uncle Zhou acted as if he didn't hear Chiyu's words and said, "This is called the Dragon Field Courtyard. Every morning at 7 o'clock, Mr. Qi can eat in the dining room on the second floor. Lunch is at 11:30 and dinner is at 6 o'clock. Food is only provided at these 3 times a day. Every morning from 7 to 8 o'clock, there will be servants to help you clean the room. If you need anything else, you can also find me. You're the first male guest that Miss has stayed with." Chi turned over and lay on the bed. He looked at Uncle Zhou and said, "Then I should be very honored. Doesn't your miss have a boyfriend?" Uncle Zhou shook his head and said, "I'm sorry, I can't talk about Mrs. Matters. Everyone here has to follow the rules. Mr. Chi, you are a guest, so you can be more relaxed. Mr. Chi, please wait for a moment. I will go get your training clothes for you." No, it's okay. I want to sleep for a while. I didn't sleep at all last night. Please tell your Mississippi. She can't not let me sleep." Chi was too lazy to practice. Although Ming Ming's lightning-fast skills had shocked him, he was too lazy to practice with her when he thought of Hai Ruyue's cold eyes. Uncle Zhou said, "That's not good. Mrs. Orders are always unquestionable." As he spoke, he had already walked out of the room. Chi curled his lips. "No matter what orders you give, I will sleep. At worst, I will go back to my basement." After a while, Uncle Zhou came back with a set of simple training clothes in his hand. At this time, Chi had entered a hazy state because he didn't sleep for the whole night. He didn't even know that Uncle Zhou had come in. "Mr. Chi, you can get up." As he spoke, Uncle Zhou patted Chi Yu's shoulder gently. Chi Yu turned over and didn't respond. Uncle Zhou frowned and patted his shoulder again. This time, Chi Yu only felt a warm flow from his shoulder into his body. His hazy consciousness because of sleep suddenly woke up. Uncle Zhou, what are you doing?" Uncle Zhou said, "Mr. Chi, please follow me to the training room. Don't let Miss wait for too long." Chi Yu sat up and said, "Uncle Zhou, you can call me by my name. My name is Chi Yu. Please tell your miss that I want to sleep." Uncle Zhou said, "Mr. Chi, you should tell Miss yourself. I can't disobey Miss's orders. Please don't make things difficult for me. Okay?" Chi Yu had to sit up. He was just dissatisfied with Hai Ruyue's attitude, but he didn't want to make things difficult for this Uncle Zhou. After all, in his opinion, he was just trying to make a living. Why should he make things difficult for him? "Okay, I will go with you. However, you don't need to change the training clothes. Anyway, I don't plan to practice." "Uncle Zhou, didn't I say that you could just call me by my name?" There was a smile on Uncle Zhou's face, and he said, "It's not polite. I'll call you Mr. Zhou." Chi Yu's appearance was not ugly. He was very polite to him, so the old man couldn't help but have a good impression of him. Chi Yu got off the bed and said, "It's not polite. How about this? As long as it's not in front of your miss, you can call me by my name. It's more comfortable. I've never been called Mr. before. Uncle Zhou, let's go." Uncle Zhou nodded and left the room with Chi Yu. They went directly to the 4th floor of the villa. There was only one door. Uncle Zhou went to the door and knocked a few times. Mr. Chi is here." Hai Ryue's cold voice came from the room. "Let him in." Uncle Zhou nodded to Chi Yu. Chi Yu only heard a soft voice in his ear. "Don't disobey Mississippi. It's better for you this way." After Uncle Zhou left, Chi Yu came to his senses. It turned out that this Uncle Zhou was also a hidden master. Ming Ming had also used his ability to condense sound into a line. However, Ming Ming couldn't condense the sound so fine and clear. He couldn't help but secretly rejoice that he didn't insist before. Otherwise, with Uncle Zhou's loyalty to Hai Ryue's orders, he might have used force to bring him here. Pushing the door and entering, Chi Yu saw a huge practice room. It was 2,000 or 3,000 square meters. The floor was covered with a layer of mat about 3 inches thick. The mat was not soft, but it was full of elasticity. The surrounding walls seemed to be covered with the same thing. The whole practice room looked very empty, and Hai Ryue was sitting cross-legged in the center of the practice room. At this time, Hai Ryue had changed again. The professional suit on her was gone. Instead, she was wearing a white practice suit like his. Her long hair was still tied up on her head, and she was still wearing black-rimmed glasses. Although the practice suit was loose, it couldn't hide her absolutely hot body. Hai Ryue watched Chi Yu walk in the practice room with his shoes on. She couldn't help but frown. "You didn't change into your practice suit." Chi Yu shrugged his shoulders and said, "I didn't sleep last night. Now I want to rest. I just came to tell you. I'm going back." After saying that, he turned around and left. "Stop." Hai Ryue's voice became colder. However, Chi Yu seemed to not hear it. His hand had already opened the door of the practice room. Just as one of Chi Yu's feet stepped out of the practice room, he suddenly found that there was an extra hand on his shoulder. Then, he couldn't help but scream in fear. The next moment, he had already fallen heavily on the ground. This fall seemed to have broken all the bones of his body. There was no place that didn't hurt, and he almost spat out blood. His whole body was twitching because of his sudden severe pain. He curled up together, and even his consciousness was a little blurred by this fall. With a bang, the door of the practice room was closed. Ryue's cold voice sounded, "You have to remember one thing. No one is allowed to go against what I said. It doesn't matter if you're Kirin or a ruffian. Now that you are in my territory, you have to listen to me." The pain subsided a little. Chiyu struggled to get up from the ground. "Sneak attack? You have the final say in your territory. Then I'll leave. I never wanted to live under someone else's roof. If it wasn't for Ming Ming, I wouldn't have come at all." Ryue stood at the door. "Do you think my Dragonfield courtyard is a place that you can come and go as you please? If you want to leave, you can. But if you beat me, no one will stop you." Chiyu's eyes flashed as he looked at Ryue. The beauty in front of him was no longer cute. It was the first time he had been hit by a woman. He snorted angrily. "Fine." He fiercely rushed towards Ryue, his fists already raised. Ryue looked at him with disdain. She didn't move at all. When Chiyu was about 3 meters away from Ryue, he suddenly staggered and fell to the ground. Ryue was slightly stunned. Chiyu had already spread out his arms and used the momentum of his falling body to hug Ryue's legs. This move was something he had learned after many years of fighting. Once he hugged the opponent's legs, wrestling was always Chiyu's strength. Although Chiyu was a ruffian, he wasn't stupid. Ming Ming was already so strong, and this Ryue was even stronger than her. Naturally, he wouldn't be able to deal with her. Since that was the case, he could only use some despicable moves. Seeing that her legs were right in front of him, Chiyu couldn't help but be overjoyed. As long as he hugged her legs, even if she was able to break him open, it would still be a great humiliation for such a virtuous woman. Then, his goal would be achieved. Just when he thought that he was about to succeed, Ryue didn't retreat, but instead advanced. Her body suddenly moved forward and her left leg bent. Before Chiyu's arms could close, her knee was right on top of Chiyu's forehead. A huge force was transmitted, and his head was instantly lifted along with his body. At the same time, Ryue's left leg was lifted up, and the surface of her foot hit his chest. Chiyu only felt that he was suddenly flying, and he did a backflip in the air that he would never be able to do normally. His hands, which he had stretched out, were only grabbing air. Due to the huge force coming from his forehead, his neck felt like it was broken, and the sharp pain coming from his chest made him almost unable to breathe. This time, he didn't fall to the ground, but his flying body flew straight out after the backflip. He flew for 5 to 6 meters before landing on the ground, and the impact pushed him backward along the floor. A mouthful of blood gushed out of Chiyu's mouth, and it immediately stained the new clothes Zagru had given him. His vision blurred, and the sharp pain coming from his chest made Chiyu lose the strength to even get up. He opened his mouth wide, trying to breathe, but the burning pain in his chest made him suffocate. Ryue's cold voice rang out again. "I heard that you're Ink Kirin. Ink Kirin was born with a superhuman self-healing ability. Do you know what happened to the successors of the Kirin bloodline in the past? It's precisely because they're too weak that they've become the targets of their enemies, which is why they've implicated the Zodiac guardian god. Since you're a Black Shielan, then let me develop your self-healing potential. That way, you won't cause us any trouble in the future." A domineering energy pulled Chiyu up from the ground, and Ryue's face grew larger and larger in front of Chiyu. At this moment, blood was flowing out of Chiyu's mouth and nose. Ryue said coldly, "I don't care if you hate me. Hate me all you want. If you're even a little bit stronger than me, you can return it to me. At least, you'll be a powerhouse by then, but unfortunately, you're not one yet." Chiyu gasped for breath. "You decided to do this since the first time you saw me, Miss Tyrannosaurus Rex." Miss Tyrannosaurus Rex. His voice was stuttering, but his expression showed no sign of submission. Ryue said calmly, "If you're willing to think that way, I won't deny it. Kirin is the king of the Zodiac, but you're not. You don't have the ability to be recognized by us. In order not to become a burden to us in the future, hellish training is suitable for you. At the very least, I'll turn you into an unkillable cockroach." As she said that, she lifted Chi-Yu's body with one hand. The world spun around him again, and Chi-Yu was thrown heavily to the ground. Chi-Yu was on the verge of fainting from the intense pain that followed. At this time, an icy, cold stream of air came from the top of his head, and Chi-Yu's consciousness suddenly became much clearer than before he entered the training room. "Hi, Ryua," said calmly. "You must deeply feel this pain. Only then can you better stimulate your potential." Chi-Yu's eyes revealed a trace of resentment. "Is this the legendary rice swinging?" Hi Ryua once again grabbed Chi-Yu from the ground. "Think what you want. I hope that today's pain will let you remember one thing. Before you become stronger than me, my orders cannot be disobeyed." Bang! He was thrown again. This time, Hi Ryua used a lot of strength, and Chi-Yu's body was directly thrown more than 10 meters away, heavily hitting the wall and then slowly sliding down. No matter how elastic the floor and the wall cushions were, such a strong, heavy blow was something that Chi-Yu had never experienced before. Now he somewhat understood why Yin Xiaoyi hated him so much. This kind of attack without any ability to resist not only hurt his body, but also his heart. This was an insult. The biggest insult a woman could give to a man was naturally to doubt a man's sexual ability. Now, Chi-Yu clearly had this kind of feeling. In front of Hai Ryua, he was like a small boat in the raging waves, not to mention resisting. Even standing up was a luxury. Tyrannosaurus Rex's abuse really began. Hai Ryua only used one hand. Back and forth she grabbed Chi-Yu, and then threw him again. Except for the time when Chi-Yu attacked her, she did not directly hit Chi-Yu's body again. Chi-Yu in her hands was really like a big sack, being thrown here and there. Blood couldn't help but stain the front of Chi-Yu's own clothes, at the same time also stain the floor and the wall cushions. At this time seemed to be stretched out infinitely. Chi-Yu wanted to choose to be unconscious, but Hai Ryua did not give him this opportunity. Every time she threw him, Hai Ryua would pause for a moment and then again attack. Her strength seemed to be endless. She did not know what fatigue was. A layer of faint black light gradually appeared on Chi-Yu's body. He could not even let out a scream now. Except that he was still conscious, he could only let Hai Ryua continue to attack him. Only when he faced this female Tyrannosaurus Rex alone, Chi-Yu understood why Ji Ming and Uncle Zhou wanted to warn him. The female Tyrannosaurus Rex's violent impulses almost never stopped. Hai Ryua finally stopped. Blood was scattered everywhere on the floor. Chi-Yu's body was lying in the corner. His whole body was covered in blood. The rise and fall of his chest proved that he was still alive. Hai Ryua's expression was still so cold. She took out her communicator. "Uncle Zhou, please come to my training room." Putting away the communicator, she walked in front of Chi-Yu and stopped, squatting beside him, her hands separately pressed on various parts of his body. She said indifferently, "Today is an hour. The next time will be in 3 days. The next time, the time will be increased by 10 minutes. Chi-Yu looked at her with dull and lifeless eyes. His gaze at this time was somewhat similar to Hai Ryua's. There was no emotion in it. The feeling of bullying the weak is very satisfying, right? Hai Ryua looked into his eyes. "What do you think? I have at least 100 ways to deal with a little hooligan like you. There is one thing I can be sure of. You are still a man. At least in this hour, you did not beg me for mercy. Otherwise, I will look down on you even more. If you are willing to surrender to me now, maybe I will let you rest for 2 more days." "Surrender? Do you think I will? You can break my body, but you can't break my spirit. The feeling of loosening my muscles and bones is really satisfying, but I think if I am grabbing those 2 things on your chest, it will be even more satisfying." At this time, not only did Chi-Yu's voice not surrender, but there was a hint of mockery in it. Indeed, he could not feel the pain now. When the pain reached a certain level, his body had already become numb. "It seems that today, I still went too easy on you." Hai Ryua's voice seemed to be able to freeze the air, if not because she knew that Chi-Yu's body could not take any more blows. She was afraid that she would have already attacked again. Chi-Yu forced a smile, but his eyes flashed with a cold light. Chi-Yu, swear on my own blood, one day, I will make Hai Ryua my female slave." Hai Ryue had never felt fear since she was young, but when she saw the smiling Chi-Yu say these words, she suddenly felt a chill run down her spine. Chi-Yu's tone was not firm. Because his body had suffered a blow, his voice was a little hoarse. But she did not know why. But Hai Ryue could deeply feel that Chi-Yu's words were not just a threat. The door opened, and Uncle Zhou walked in from outside. When he saw the bloodstains on the floor, he could not help but jump in fright. "Miss, this..." Hai Ryue stood up and walked out of the door. "It's nothing. I was just practicing with Mr. Chi. Send him back to his room. Don't use any medicine. Just provide him with food and let him recover on his own." After Hai Ryue left, Chi-Yu's breathing became even heavier. His lifeless eyes slowly closed, and his chest constantly rose and fell. Uncle Zhou quickly walked to Chi-Yu's side, took his wrist pulse, and used his other hand to feel his body. Chi-Yu had indeed lost a lot of blood, and at this time, his pulse was very weak. Uncle Zhou sighed. "Why did you do this?" Chi-Yu smiled bitterly. "Even I find it strange. Is she naturally violent?" Uncle Zhou carefully helped Chi-Yu up and said, "You need a rest now. Miss still had a sense of propriety. She did not hurt your bones, and your internal organs were only slightly shaken. Overall, it is considered an external injury, but you have lost a lot of blood. Don't make Miss angry in the future. Actually, Miss is a very good person. She has always been swift and decisive, and hates people who disobey her orders the most. Whether in the business world or at home, she has always been known for being tough." Chi-Yu's eyes flashed coldly. "My memory has always been good. Uncle Zhou, thank you for your reminder." After returning to the room, with the help of Uncle Zhou, Chi-Yu changed his clothes and wiped the bloodstains on his body. Chi-Yu did not even have the strength to eat, and immediately fell into a deep sleep. Hai Ryue stood calmly in her room, looking out the window at the vast expanse of green in the courtyard. Her expression was no longer as cold as before. She raised her right hand, and a faint white light condensed on her hand. After a while, her hand was covered with a layer of fine white scales, and her fingertips also grew solid nails. "Kirin has appeared. It seems that the East is really not peaceful anymore. Chi-Yu, I don't need you to understand my intentions. I only hope that you can become stronger in the shortest time possible. Even if Kirin, one of the 4 auspicious signs, restricts your cultivation, at least you have to have a strong body. It is very difficult for the Zodiac Guardian to complete its mission. Without Kirin's guidance, it is impossible to perfect it. Master Zagru, I'm sorry, but I can only use my own method. Why does the thundercloud force in my body fluctuate violently every time I grab his body? For an hour, my thundercloud force seems to be strongly rejected, as if the progress I have made in the past few days has disappeared. Is this the effect of Kirin's auspicious sign?" Chapter 10. Chi-Yu, who was in a deep sleep, kept recalling the acupoints that he had memorized the night before. Every acupoint became clearer. Even the other 7 acupoints that he had not memorized carefully had a rough impression of. This was the first time that the Kirin bloodline had come into play since it had first awakened. Ink Kirin had always been the king of Kirin. Did it really only have the ability to recover? Could Kirin of the 4 auspicious clouds only be trash? This was the first time in the history of Ink Kirin that there was a bloodline inheritance. Even Zagru, who had inherited the power of Buddha for 10 lifetimes, did not know what Ink Kirin really possessed. Time always passed quickly in sleep. When the day was replaced by night, there was one more person in Chi-Yu's room. Hai Ryue was still dressed in white, but now she was wearing sportswear. The black-rimmed glasses on her face were gone, and her black hair was draped over her back, reaching her knees. If Chi-Yu could see Hai Ryue now, he would be very surprised. Right now, there wasn't a trace of violence on her face. Her gentle face exuded a faint warmth. Standing in front of the bed, Hai Ryue's hands kept changing the shape of her hands. Her body emitted a milky white light, which resonated with the black and silver light that Chi-Yu's body emitted. Why isn't there any rejection now? Hai Ryue was a little surprised as she muttered to herself. When her thundercloud force came into contact with the Kirin aura emitted from Chi-Yu's body, Not only did her own thundercloud force not produce any rejection, but the speed of its circulation also increased greatly. It should be known that at her current realm, the thundercloud force had already liquefied in her body. The circulation speed was one of the biggest obstacles to cultivation. Ryue crossed her arms in front of her chest and slowly closed her eyes. She used her heart to feel the Kirin aura. She realized that the Kirin aura emitted from Chiyu's body was very gentle. It was like a warm spring breeze, constantly seeping out of his pores and acting on his body. Chiyu's body temperature was very high. It was at least 40 degrees Celsius. Every cell in his body seemed to be full of vitality, constantly decomposing and reforming. The injuries on his body recovered much faster than expected. In particular, the sound of Chiyu's heartbeat was especially clear in this quiet room. The powerful heartbeat was obviously much stronger than that of an ordinary person. Ryue slowly opened her eyes. She thought to herself, that's right. Kirin's aura is naturally the biggest help for the Zodiac guardian god's cultivation. His aura will change according to his own will. Because I used a heavy hand on him previously, he will reject me from the bottom of his heart. His Kirin aura will have the opposite effect on my rising Dragonart Thundercloud force. Now that he is in a deep sleep and his consciousness has already fallen asleep, I can't judge Kirin's aura. This will allow me to achieve twice the result with half the effort when I cultivate beside him. He is indeed worthy of being the Zodiac King. His aura is only at the beginning of his awakening, and it is already so powerful. Damn it. Ryue, I want to rape you. A loud voice suddenly appeared in the quiet room. Even Ryue couldn't help but jump in fright. Chiyu's body turned over. Perhaps it was because he had touched the injuries on his body. He couldn't help but frown in his sleep. Ryue looked at this Ruffy-like man in a bad mood. A trace of anger flashed in her eyes. Do all men think with their lower bodies? If it wasn't for Kirin, humph. Her plump chest slightly rose and fell. A cold light flashed in her eyes. She bit her lower lip and endured it in the end. Born with the face of an angel and the body of a devil, Ryue became the object of pursuit of her peers when she was in her teens. It was unknown how much trouble this brought her. After all, she was only a woman. She had also met men who could move her heart. However, at the same time, she was also a Zodiac guardian god. Back then, she was the first one that Zagru discovered. For her own responsibility, she had to give up many things that women of her age should have. Dragon was the commander of the Zodiac guardian gods. She carried far more responsibilities than Ji Ming. A knock sounded on the door. Ryue indifferently said, "Come in." Uncle Zhou walked in with a tray. On the tray was a large porcelain pot. "Miss, I cooked some meat porridge for Mr. Qi." Ryue nodded and said, "He should wake up in a while." Uncle Zhou, no matter what happens to him, you don't need to be surprised. You must keep a secret. His identity is very special. It is very important to me. Uncle Zhou smiled and said, "Miss, you still don't trust me?" Ryue's eyes softened a lot. She walked in front of Uncle Zhou and took the tray and put it on the table. She said, "How can that be? If I don't trust you, I wouldn't have asked you to take care of him. You have watched Xiaoyu grow up. I have always treated you as a father. You are the same as my parents. You're the closest person to me. If I had to choose the most trustworthy person in the world, it would definitely be you." Uncle Zhou's body trembled. He looked kindly at Ryue and said, "Silly child. Uncle Zhou will always be your Uncle Zhou. As long as you don't despise Uncle Zhou for being old, Uncle Zhou will always accompany you. Although this young man called Chiyu is a bit frivolous, his nature is not bad. You have tormented him quite a bit today. Is this necessary?" Hearing Uncle Zhou mention Chiyu, Ryue became angry. She snorted and said, "People like him should suffer more. Let him think whatever he wants. I hate lecherous people like him the most. You didn't see the look in his eyes when he first saw me. If it wasn't for his important status, I would have beaten him until he was bedridden for a few months. If I don't teach him a lesson, he will never remember." Uncle Zhou laughed lightly and said, "A leopard can change its spots, but a leopard can't. Appetite and lust are part of his nature. He is still so young. It is inevitable that he will be more attentive when it comes to matters between men and women. Moreover, Miss is so beautiful. Miss, you're already 23 years old this year. It's time for you to consider your marriage. Ryua blushed slightly. She said, Uncle Zhou, I don't want to think about this right now. There are too many things that I need to do. Uncle Zhou sighed and said, Miss, no matter what, you are still a girl. You must have your own home. I know that you are shouldering a great responsibility. However, you cannot make things difficult for yourself. Think about Uncle Zhou's words. What I want the most is to see you live a happy life. Hyru nodded lightly and said, Uncle Zhou, I am leaving. I will leave him to you. Uncle Zhou said, Are you still going to treat him like that 3 days later? Hyru said indifferently, You also know that once I have decided on something, I will not change my mind. This is the best method I can think of for him. Don't worry. His healing ability is extremely strong. He will be fine. Uncle Zhou frowned slightly and said, Perhaps his body will really be fine. However, if you treat him like this, it will also be a heavy blow to his spirit. As a man, to be humiliated and beaten, I am afraid he will bear a grudge against you for the rest of his life. You also said that his status is very important to you. So, why don't you make it clear? Tell him what you were thinking. Ryua shook her head and said, No, I can't tell him anything. If that is the case, there will be no effect. If he wants to hate me, then so be it. I just hope that his ability to survive will be stronger. Do you really expect him to have strength that surpasses me? I will go out first. After he wakes up, don't tell him anything. Ryua left. Uncle Zhou shook his head helplessly. Miss, when can you change your stubborn temper? Walking to the bed, Uncle Zhou couldn't help but be a little surprised when he saw the silver and black light emitted from Chiyu's body. However, he quickly recovered and put his hand on Chiyu's wrist to check his pulse. After that, he gently patted Chiyu's face and said, Chiyu, wake up, get up, and eat something before going to sleep. A warm flow of air entered his brain. Chiyu slowly woke up from his sleep. Uncle Zhou, it's you. Chiyu couldn't help but moan as he felt a stabbing pain all over his body. In the midst of the pain, there seemed to be an itchy feeling in the injured parts. Uncle Zhou helped Chiyu sit up and brought the porcelain pot in front of him. When the porcelain pot was opened, a strong aroma suddenly came out. Perhaps it was because Chiyu's stomach suddenly growled, making Chiyu feel very embarrassed. Uncle Zhou smiled and said, Eat something. You have slept for a whole day. Chiyu looked at the sky outside through the window and said, It's been so long. I can really sleep. Thank you, Uncle Zhou. As he said that, he took the bowl from Uncle Zhou and ate it in big mouthfuls. Although his whole body was still in pain, his spirit was obviously much better. He was no longer in a state where he couldn't use any strength. Chiyu didn't feel anything, but Uncle Zhou was deeply shocked by his recovery ability. One had to know that when he had checked Chiyu's body this morning, he had discovered that his bones and tendons had been severely injured and his muscles had suffered even greater damage. In just one day, he was able to eat by himself. This was the first time Uncle Zhou had seen such recovery ability. Chiyu's table manners had never been very elegant. A large pot of meat porridge was quickly emptied into his stomach. He did not know why, but he felt that his body was in great need of food. Even though he had eaten 2 or 3 servings of porridge, he was still not satisfied. Chiyu, I will call you that. Uncle Zhou put the porcelain pot and the bowl aside. Chiyu nodded and said, Of course, you are my elder. You should call me by my name. Uncle Zhou said, Miss wants you to go to the training room in 3 days, and the time will be extended by 10 minutes. Can you bear it? Chiyu said indifferently, It's not impossible. Anyway, I won't give in to her, and she won't beat me to death. Since that's the case, then come on. I have no ability to resist, and I can only choose to accept it. You don't need to persuade me. Even if my attitude towards her changes, I'm afraid she will not let me go. I also understand why she is doing this. Uncle Zhou said in surprise, You understand. Chiyu sneered. Of course I understand. When you sent me back this morning, although my body was numb, my mind was very clear. I understood at that time. I'm a ruffian, and it's only because of a fortuitous encounter that I have a special identity. But in the end, I'm just a little ruffian. She looks down on my strength and is afraid that I'll drag them down in the future, so she stimulates my body's potential by beating me up. This way, my self-healing ability that surpasses ordinary people will become stronger, and I'll bring them less trouble in the future. Uncle Joe nodded and said, "You're a smart child. Since you understand all this, you should also understand why the young miss looks down on you. Because you don't have the strength to make her look up to you. As a man, you don't need any explanation or any way to cover up your shortcomings. You need to take action. Rely on action to prove your strength. As long as you keep working hard, one day no one in this world will look down on you." Although Miss is a little extreme, she did it deliberately to provoke you. "I believe that you are a man with courage," Chiyu said with some gratitude. "Thank you, Uncle Joe. I know that you do not look down on me. Don't worry, although I, Chiyu, am a ruffian, I am also a real man." Uncle Joe nodded with satisfaction and said with a smile, "Have you thought about how to deal with Mrs. 10 minutes of attack? Based on my understanding of her, since she has said it, she will not hold back." Chiyu shook his head at a loss and said, "I don't know. Maybe my self-healing ability can help me bear it. One thing I am sure of is that she will not really hurt me." Uncle Joe said, "You're being too passive. Actually, there's a way to passively take a beating. You said it yourself. Miss won't really hurt you. If you can use a better method to take the beating, then the injuries you'll suffer will be much lighter." Chiyu's eyes lit up and said, "Uncle Joe, are you willing to teach me?" Uncle Joe did not answer him directly. "It is the same to be beaten, but it can have different effects. I don't know what is going on with the airflow from your body, but I can feel that it is the source of your magical, self-healing ability. Your physical quality is still good. I have carefully checked your bones, and you can be said to be a rare genius in 100 years. There are only 3 days, so I can't teach you anything profound. Let me teach you how to take a beating. Being beaten is also a kind of knowledge. It is the application of one's own body and the application of one's strength. You're like a blank piece of paper now. As long as you have some understanding, then it should not be too difficult for you to withstand Miss for 10 more minutes. After all, she is only beating you." Chiyu said respectfully, "Then please teach me. I will call you Teacher Joe in the future." "No need. You can call me Uncle Joe. In fact, some skills are very simple and can be easily done by ordinary people. It is like a layer of paper separated by 2 layers of ice and fire. You can easily understand it when you poke through the paper. For example, when you hit the wall with your back, it will inevitably cause shock and discomfort to your whole body. If you raise your arms above your shoulders at the moment before you hit the wall, then the muscles on your back will automatically tense up. In this way, the shock you receive when you hit the wall will be much less. If the enemy punches you, at this time you want to block his fist and directly take his punch, you will naturally have to bear the impact of his punch. However, if you let it go directly, you can hit the joint of his wrist with your palm. It will be very easy to make his punch miss. Human arms are like snakes. Although they are not as flexible as snakes, they have several joints. Hitting the joints is like hitting the snake's weak point. These skills are very simple. As long as you practice a little, you can also do it." Chiyu nodded thoughtfully. What Uncle Joe opened in front of him was a special door. Uncle Joe took out a book from his bosom and handed it to Chiyu. This is a simple cultivation method. It can also be said to be the method of building the foundation. As long as you keep practicing, it will have the effect of strengthening the body. I have made detailed notes on the formula. Based on Mrs. Importance to you, I will not be your teacher. However, I am old and do not want my skills to die with me, so I will pass it on to you. I hope it will be of help to you. The most advantageous aspect of my skill is that I can practice sitting, lying down, walking, sleeping, and even when my body is upside down, I can also practice it. Although you're a little old, as long as you work hard, you'll have some achievements. Today, you can simply familiarize yourself with it. When your body recovers a little, I will teach you." Chiyu looked down at the book in his hand. The book was not thick. It seemed to only have a dozen or so pages. There were 4 big words written on it: Mysterious Heaven Treasure Record. Chiyu struggled to get off the bed. Although the pain in his body made him suck in a breath of cold air, he still struggled to stand up and kneel on the ground. "Teacher, No matter what High Ryue thinks, in any case, I have recognized you as my teacher. Although it was only the first day he met Uncle Zhou, Uncle Zhou brought him a sense of intimacy and care, as well as this selfless teaching, which moved him. Uncle Zhou grabbed Qi Yu's arms. A gentle force lifted him up. He smiled and said, "We can be considered to be fated. This year, I am already 70 years old. In fact, I do not like your character, but I really do not want my unique skill to be lost. Moreover, you have such good bones. Since you are willing, I will accept you as my teacher. I only hope that you can pass on my skills. I have been practicing martial arts since I was 8, and it has been 62 years now. In 60 years, I have learned a lot. Yin Huang is vast and profound. You have an unruly nature, so I will not restrict you. I only hope that no matter what you do, you will not let down your own heart. You should rest first. I will come again tomorrow morning to teach you some skills." Uncle Zhou took the tray and left. Qi Yu could not wait to open the thin book in his hands. He was pleasantly surprised to find that the first 2 pages of the book introduced the 8 extraordinary meridians of the human body. He had already memorized one yesterday. His current state of mind was completely different from last night. His desire for strength made him no longer lazy. He immediately picked up the book and carefully memorized it. He knew that whether it was the things that Uncle Zhou had taught him or the ascending Qilin formula, the 8 extraordinary meridians were very important to him in the future. Qi was not stupid. On the contrary, he was a very smart person. It was only because of his background and the surrounding environment that he did not put his intelligence into studying. He was very lazy, but once he decided to do something, he would give it his all. Under his constant effort, he not only memorized the 8 extraordinary meridians in 3 hours, but he also found the approximate position of the meridians in his body according to the meridian diagram in the mysterious Heaven Treasure Record. After sleeping for a whole day, he was not sleepy at all. When he finished memorizing the 8 extraordinary meridians, he could not wait to flip to the 3rd page of the mysterious Heaven Treasure Record. The 3rd page was also a diagram, but the person in the diagram was sitting. A red arrow was drawn on the person's body in a regular pattern, starting from the Dantian acupoint on the lower abdomen and ending at the Dantian acupoint. It followed the 8 extraordinary meridians and made a complete circle. There was a detailed explanation on the side. Using the will to guide the qi, move the heart at will, and use the will to ascend to the Dantian. As he read the book, Qi Yu subconsciously imitated it. With the memory of the 8 extraordinary meridians, he quickly memorized the route of the red arrow. This was the first time in his life that he had officially begun to cultivate. His will moved slowly in coordination with the special reverse breathing technique described in the mysterious Heaven Treasure Record. Just by moving his will, Qi Yu did not feel anything special. However, when his will started from the Dantian and ended at the Dantian, he immediately felt change. There seemed to be something extra in his Dantian. When he carefully felt it, it seemed to be a small airflow. The airflow was very weak, and as it fluctuated, it was faintly divided into 4 parts. Qi Yu discovered that these 4 parts of airflow were purple, green, blue, and red. They seemed to be flowing gently in his Dantian. This discovery immediately made Qi Yu's heart tremble. Zagru had once told him that he was Kirin of the 4 auspicious clouds. He had the 4 abilities of thunder, wind, water, and fire. It seemed to be these 4 colors. Why did they say that his cultivation would be very difficult? He had only cultivated one of the spiritual circulations described in the mysterious Heaven Treasure Record, but he already felt it. This did not seem to be slow. In fact, he did not know that after his awakening, the abilities of Kirin of the 4 auspicious clouds had already existed. It was just that he had not deliberately activated them. Therefore, these 4 abilities had always been dormant in his body. Although the mysterious Heaven Treasure Record was not the ascending Qilin method, it was still an orthodox cultivation method. After 1 spiritual circulations, it naturally triggered the thundercloud force that was produced after his awakening to condense in his Dantian. Qi tried to control the 4 airflows to move towards his hands. The airflows were very obedient, following his thoughts and moving along his meridians. When they arrived at his hands, Chiyu felt that both his thumb and index finger had a different feeling at the same time. A ball of flame appeared on his left thumb, and his index finger was slightly numb. A faint purple electric light revolved around his left index finger, and his right thumb emitted a faint layer of blue light. A gentle energy flowed gently, and there was an invisible airflow slightly rotating around his right index finger. The changes caused Chiyu to be overjoyed. He knew that his guess was correct. These were the 4 abilities of Kirin of the 4 auspicious clouds. Thinking back to what Ji Ming had taught him, he could not help but open his mouth and shout, "Appear." It was a simple word, but it seemed to trigger the vitality of every cell in his body. The 4 tiny airflows that were originally circulating slowly in his body instantly condensed at his fingertips. Red, purple, and blue lights lit up at the same time, and a slight whistling sound of wind also appeared. The red light was a fireball the size of a ping-pong ball, and the purple electric light was already drifting erratically, leaving a charred mark on the wall next to him. The blue light was a small ball of water, and the wind also dispersed unstably. At this moment, there was a small energy ball on each of Chiyu's thumbs. The red and blue lights shone faintly, giving him a great shock. However, this situation did not last for too long. In just a few seconds, the red and blue balls disappeared at the same time. His body also seemed to have been sucked dry, and the airflow that had just appeared disappeared. "Appear," Chiyu shouted again in a low voice. Unfortunately, there was no reaction this time. Even so, this short change gave him a lot of confidence. He immediately sat cross-legged and began to cultivate according to the method recorded in the mysterious Heaven Treasure Record. This time, it was not a single cycle. Chiyu clearly remembered that Ming had said that the best way to cultivate the ascending cloud method was to complete 49 cycles, which was a large cycle. Since the mysterious Heaven Treasure Record was also a cultivation method, it should be similar. It was just that one cycle in the mysterious Heaven Treasure Record was called a cycle. Therefore, when he started cultivating again, he decided to directly do a large cycle. The beginning of cultivation was exploration. When Chiyu's mind followed the cultivation route and ran 7 cycles, he no longer needed to deliberately feel the familiar route. Gradually, he entered a hazy state. In fact, he did not know that as a beginner, he should start from a small cycle. He could not go beyond 7 cycles. After he improved, he could gradually increase the number of small cycles. Only when he had a certain level of success could he start to cultivate a large cycle. This was because a beginner's mind would definitely have some flaws. Once his mind was disturbed during the cultivation process, it was very likely that he would go berserk. However, as an auspicious sign, he was clearly lucky. His desire for power made him wholeheartedly focus on cultivation, and his mind did not waver. More importantly, when he began to cultivate, the relic bead on his wrist naturally emitted a gentle energy that stabilized his mind. With the relic bead on his body, it would not be easy for him to go berserk even if he wanted to. After 49 cycles, Chi did not feel that it took him much time. When the last cycle was completed, he realized that the 4 streams of air had reappeared in his dantian. It was obvious that these 4 streams of air were much more condensed than before, and their volume had also increased. He did not know that he had managed to completely condense the Kirin's energy that he had obtained after waking up in just one night. This would be indescribably beneficial to his future cultivation. Although it was not the ascending Qilin technique, the effect was actually better than the ascending Qilin technique. The foundation cultivation of the mysterious Heaven Treasure Record was to expel the turbid qi from the human body and gather clear qi to achieve the effect of dispelling the impurities in the body. If an ordinary person could persevere, they would only be successful after 3 years. At that time, they would become strong and their body light. Their foundation would be firm, and they would be able to achieve twice the results with half the effort when cultivating other advanced cultivation techniques. However, Kirin's aura was obviously pure, clear qi. Qi did not need to absorb the clear qi between heaven and earth bit by bit like an ordinary person, to replenish his body. After one night of cultivation, he had directly absorbed the Kirin's cloud chi that was scattered in his 8 extraordinary meridians. Taking a deep breath, Chiyu only felt that his whole body was refreshed. When he opened his eyes, he happened to see his newly recognized master, Uncle Zhou, let out a long sigh as if he had been relieved of a heavy burden. "Master, you're here." Chiyu hurriedly stood up from the bed. Although he was a ruffian, he also knew the simple principle of respecting his own master. Uncle Zhou said in a bad mood, "Are you trying to scare me to death? I gave you the mysterious Heaven Treasure Records Foundation cultivation section because I wanted you to have a simple understanding of the process. Who told you to cultivate on your own? Without my guidance and protection, if you go berserk outside, you will become a cripple." Chiyu scratched his head and said, "But I feel very good. It's very comfortable, and the injuries on my body don't seem to hurt anymore." A trace of a smile appeared on Uncle Zhou's face. "Your talent is unprecedented. Not only did you try to cultivate on your own, you were also able to complete a great heavenly cycle on your first try. For people like us who practice internal martial arts, this is something that we can only hope for but not ask for. It seems that the age limit for martial artists no longer has any meaning for you. After cultivating for a night, how do you feel?" Chiyu laughed mischievously. With a thought, he extended both his hands. Immediately, the 4 elemental energies simultaneously appeared at his fingertips. Although it was only a faint glow, the characteristics of the 4 elemental energies were immediately revealed. He somewhat proudly described the feeling he had while cultivating. Hearing Chiyu's words, Uncle Zhou's expression couldn't help but change. "Oh no, I've ruined the young Mrs. Grand plan. So you have the ability. Then you shouldn't have practiced my cultivation method. Chiyu, it seems that I can't be your master anymore." Chiyu stared blankly. "Master, what are you saying? A teacher for a day, a teacher for life." Uncle Zhou bitterly smiled and shook his head, saying, "You don't need to do anything right now. Just wait here, I'll go find the young miss." Saying this, he immediately hurried out the door. In a short moment, Hairuyue had already followed Uncle Zhou back to Chiyu's room. Hairuyue frowned as she looked at Chiyu, saying, "Use the ability you just used one more time." Chapter 11. Hairuyue's eyes were filled with surprise. She glanced at Uncle Zhou. Uncle Zhou said, "Miss, I'm sorry. I didn't know that he had already." Hairuyue shook her head and said, "Fortunately, it didn't have any negative effects. Uncle Zhou, you go do what you need to do. Chiyu, come with me." After saying that, she turned around and walked out. Chiyu didn't understand what Hairuyue meant. He could only follow her out of his room. Hairuyue brought Chiyu directly to the 3rd floor. It was the training room again. In the training room, the blood that flowed from Chiyu's body had disappeared. It was cleaned up very cleanly. Chiyu recalled the last blow and couldn't help but feel a little nervous. "It hasn't been 3 days yet," Hairu said indifferently. "It hasn't been 3 days, but it has been 2 days." Chiyu said in surprise, "You mean I have cultivated for 2 days?" Hairuyue said, "It seems that I have underestimated you. The Kirin bloodline has brought you more things than I imagined." When she had first awakened, it had taken her half a month to begin to grasp the abilities of the first awakening. Chiyu, on the other hand, had only been awake for a few days. He hadn't even learned the ascending Qilin technique, yet he could already use the abilities of the 4 awakened attributes. How could she not be shocked? Chiyu leaned against the wall and said, "Then why did you call me here? Are you going to torture me in advance?" Hairuyue said, "No, I called you here because I wanted to show you the true power of the Zodiac guardian god." Today, she was still wearing the black-rimmed glasses and the professional dress that Chiyu had seen her for the first time. Chiyu said with a little ridicule, "You want to show me your ability just like that? Aren't you afraid of exposing yourself?" Hairuyue said coldly, "What else is in your mind besides those dirty thoughts?" Zodiac dragon. With a light cry like a phoenix, Hairuyue's body floated up. Chiyu only saw a blur before Hairuyue's body suddenly disappeared. He could only see a white shadow in the air. First, Ryue's clothes were neatly placed on the ground. Seeing the clothes, Chiyu couldn't help but be stunned. Did she strip in front of him? Just as this thought arose, Ryue's figure became clear. At this time, Ryue had completely changed. Her long black hair had turned deep blue, floating behind her back. What made Chiyu dumbfounded was that Ryue's body was actually covered with a layer of crystal white scales. Two large wings were unfolded behind her back, and the scales covered every part of her body. On her beautiful face, there was a white mask. The mask was exactly the same as her face, only revealing a pair of radiant eyes. Although the scales covered every part of her body, her perfect figure was also presented in front of Chiyu. The white scales continuously extended from her waist down to her short battle skirt that was only 8 inches long. Her upper body was also covered with thick scales like armor, outlining the perfect curves of her chest. In the center of her chest, there was a milky white bead the size of a ping-pong ball that constantly emitted waves of white light. It wasn't a gentle light, but it gave Chiyu a feeling of endless oppression. At this time, Chiyu could clearly feel that there was an invisible force emitting from Ryue's body, pressing down on his body from every angle. Even if he wanted to move, it became even more difficult. After the transformation, Ryue appeared to be even colder. She extended both of her fingertips to the sides of her body, each growing 3 inches long sharp nails. Ryue's body looked so perfect, and Chiyu did not doubt that it contained an explosive power. He was deeply shocked by the scene in front of him. Was this a dragon? A dragon's ability? The transformation did not end there. Ryue let out a low moan, and the white light on her chest became even more intense. The white pearl exploded with a huge amount of energy. Although Chiyu was unwilling, the sudden appearance of the huge pressure still forced him to sit on the ground. The scales on Ryue's body became a little wider, and a sharp claw appeared at the tip of the open dragon wings. 2 protrusions rose from the long blue hair on her head, and triangular sharp points extended from the armor on her shoulders. The dragon's eyes shone brightly, turning from blue to red, like 2 rubies, forming a sharp contrast with the white scales on her body. Chiyu said in a daze, "Is this the power of a dragon?" Ryue's cold voice sounded from behind the mask. "Yes, this is the power of a dragon. Our Eastern dragons originally don't have wings, but because I have a quarter of European blood compared to the previous dragon Zodiac, I have an extra pair of dragon wings, making me stronger. I'm only displaying this in front of you to let you see the true power of the Zodiac Guardian. When the ascending cloud art is cultivated to the 3rd cloud, I will have the ability of origin mutation. Origin mutation can make our body more similar to the original appearance of the Zodiac, and also fully display our abilities. When I reach the 6th cloud, the origin mutation will enter the 2nd transformation. Although I'm still a certain distance away from the 6th cloud, I can already use some of the abilities of the 2nd transformation. When I truly reach the 6th cloud, then my hair will also change into red. With the ability of the 2nd transformation of the Zodiac Dragon, no individual firearms can harm me. With my strength, I can easily raise this villa to the ground. The power of a dragon is mainly reflected in the whole body. Not only is my body tyrannical, at the same time, I also have some special abilities of a dragon. With the dragon's aura that I'm emitting now, ordinary people would have already fainted. It's the aura of Kirin on your body that is resisting the dragon's aura, allowing you to stay awake. It's a pity that your Kirin hasn't even reached the 1st cloud. As she spoke, Ryue slowly floated down to the ground. Her dragon eyes, that were flickering with red light, looked at Chiyu indifferently. We, the Zodiac Guardian Warriors, have special abilities that ordinary people can't reach. Therefore, you can only practice one kind of cultivation method, and that is the ascending cloud art that belongs to you. Only Kirin can practice the ascending cloud art. You can learn some fighting skills from Uncle Zhou, but you can't learn his cultivation method anymore. I just received the news, and now there's something that I have to deal with. I've decided to bring you along and let you see what we, the Zodiac Guardian Warriors, have to face. While Chiyu was stunned, Ryue had already appeared beside him. She directly clamped him under her armpit, spread her wings on her back, and directly flew out of the window. F***CK. Aren't you afraid that ordinary people will see you flying out like this? Chiyu said with some fear. He wasn't afraid of Hai Ryue's strength, but he had the same problem as when he was on the plane, fear of heights. After all, the plane was a confined space, and his fear of heights was completely due to the feeling of weightlessness and psychological effects. But now it was different. His body directly flew in the air, and this feeling was direct. Hai Ryue flapped her wings and said while flying, "Haven't you heard of the saying that the clouds follow the dragon, and the wind follows the tiger? In the eyes of outsiders, I'm only a cloud. Even the most advanced radar can't detect the aura of life from the clouds I release." Only then did Chiyu realize that from the moment Hai Ryue flew out of the window, her body had already released a layer of faint white light. From his angle, the white light was transparent, and he could see the outside world. "Hey, why are you shaking? Are you a man afraid of heights?" Hai Ryue's voice was surprised, and there was a hint of ridicule in her voice. What's wrong with being afraid of heights? Is it embarrassing?" Although Chiyu was arguing, his voice was much softer, and the fear in his heart was increasing as he got further and further away from the ground. Hai Ryue giggled and said, "Serves you right, so you're afraid of heights. The next time you offend me, I'll take you for a ride in the sky." Actually, if you can cultivate the ascending Qilin technique to the second cloud, then you can also have the ability to fly. Kirin can also fly, with the help of Kirin's magic cloud, so there's no need for wings. At that time, do you still dare to fly? Chiyu was stunned and said, "I can fly too?" Hai Ryue said, "That's under the premise that you can undergo the first transformation, Zodiac mutation. However, you don't belong to the Zodiac, so it should be called Zodiac mutation." Hai Ryue's flying speed was extremely fast. After all, the dragons of the east could fly. Now that she had 2 more dragon wings, she could not fly thousands of miles in an instant. However, even from high up in the sky, she could clearly see the scenery beneath her feet constantly flying past. In order to slightly reduce his fear of heights, Chiyu could only talk to Hai Ryue, and his gaze was focused on her full chest that was covered in scales. "Where are you taking me?" Hai Ryue extended her left wrist in front of Chiyu, and there was a silver bracelet on it. The bracelet was about 1 inch wide, and there were a few red gems embedded on it. This is called the Spirit Cloud Bracelet, and it must be used in conjunction with the thundercloud force that our Zodiac guardian god possesses. Once a powerful aura appears within 1,000 miles of our Zodiac guardian god, it will sense it. When you reach the initial cloud realm, I will naturally give you one. What are your eyes looking at? Chiyu coughed and said, This, your dragon armor is really beautiful." Now, he didn't dare to offend Hai Ryue. He would rather be beaten 10 times than to be suspended in the air like this. Hai Ryue snorted and said, "Lust is like a knife above your head." Chiyu asked, "What do you mean by a powerful aura just now?" Hai Ryue said, "You have just woken up, and because you don't need to face it yet, there are many things that Master Zagru didn't tell you. I might as well give you a heads up. As the Guardians of the East, our Zodiac guardian god has to face many things. For example, the threat of foreign enemies to the Yanhuang Republic or the provocation from the Western Guardians. Also, there are the prehistoric beasts that have been passed down from ancient times in the East. For example, the Kirin that you have inherited is a prehistoric beast, and it has the title of the king of prehistoric beasts. The Earth has existed for billions of years, but we humans have only existed for a few million years. You should know about cockroaches. Cockroaches are famous for their vitality. As early as 300 million years ago, their footprints appeared on the Earth. From the day humans were born, all the creatures that appeared before them could be classified as prehistoric beasts. After the baptism of time, some of the prehistoric beasts had already gone extinct because they could not adapt to the gradually changing environment. However, there are some that have a strong vitality, like cockroaches that survived. After a long period of continuous evolution, their abilities are extremely terrifying. Most of them hide in the deep mountains and great swamps. Chiyu thought for a moment and said, since they are hibernating and won't harm humans, why should we look for them? Hai Ryua said, if they are really that quiet, we naturally won't find trouble with them. After all, every creature has its right to live. However, at a specific time, these prehistoric beasts will gradually appear in our world after waking up from their sleep or cultivation. Once they are allowed to enter human society, they will inevitably bring great disasters. Therefore, as the Easter Guardians, we must not let these prehistoric beasts grow. We must destroy them when they come out, so as not to bring panic to human society. Fortunately, there are not many prehistoric beasts, and most of them have lost the ability to reproduce. Therefore, our Zodiac Guardian can cooperate with the other Easter Guardians to destroy them or put them to sleep. After listening to Hai Ryua's words, Chiyu could not help but be full of curiosity, and even his fear of heights was reduced a little. What about the West? Since prehistoric beasts have appeared on the Earth for a long time, it can't be only in our Yanhuang Republic. What if there are prehistoric beasts in the West? Do we, the Zodiac Guardian, have to go to the West to help? Hyrule said indifferently, the West has its own order. Do you think those myths in the West are all fictitious? Some of them are indeed exaggerated, but the West also has their own guardian force. The guardian force in the West is divided into two parts. One part is the power of the Vatican. They have many priests and excellent talents. These people practice the holy power inherited by the Vatican, and they can also deal with prehistoric beasts. The other part is also the most ancient guardian force, which is almost the same era as our Zodiac Guardian. That is the guardian force inherited from Greek mythology. We don't know what their specific abilities are. I only know that the legendary gods in Greek mythology will appear in every generation, and at the same time, his followers will appear. The person who inherits the divine power will lead his followers to protect the West. Because of different ideas, the relationship between them and the Vatican doesn't seem to be harmonious. I heard from Master Zaglu that the last time the guardians of the East and the West appeared, it was the sun god Apollo, the son of Zeus, who appeared in Greek mythology. He led the 12 golden crow warriors of the sun to protect the West. In our generation, we don't know who it is, but I'm sure that person should have appeared. Chiyu said disapprovingly, why are you so sure? Hai Ryua looked down at him and said, because of your appearance. Because you belong to the same era, our Eastern Kirin was born almost at the same time as the gods in Greek mythology. The difference between them will not be more than 3 years. Since you have appeared, the person in Greece should have also appeared. You are fated opponents. Do you know? At least 5 generations of Kirin were killed because of the conflict between the Eastern and Western Guardians. Although we mostly have the upper hand in the battle with the West, the sacrifice is also great. The biggest difference between the Greek mythological guardians and you is that the moment they appear, they will possess a rather powerful divine power. As for the Qilin, without the protection of the Zodiac Guardian God and the combined power, it would be impossible for him to contend against it. After all, Kirin's cultivation is too difficult. Chiyu said with some disappointment. Miss Ryua, according to what you said, no matter how hard I try, it is impossible for me to become as strong as you. Hai Ryua said with some surprise, didn't you call me Tyrannosaurus Rex? Chiyu glanced at the miniaturized scenery below and said awkwardly, This, I live in your house and eat your food. I should be more polite, shouldn't I? Hai Ryua looked at Chiyu's embarrassment and couldn't help but feel a little proud. Nothing is absolute. In our generation, there are 4 Zodiac Guardians, including you. You and I are both mutated Zodiac Guardians. For example, I am a little stronger than the previous Zodiac Dragon, and you are the unprecedented Kirin. Maybe you have some special ability that can make you stronger in the process of cultivation. It only took you 2 days to be able to use the power of initial awakening is a good proof. Although it is still very weak, at least it is a good start. When we go back, I will teach you the ascending Qilin chant and you can start cultivating. Chiyu asked tentatively, does that mean I don't need to cultivate my self-healing ability? Hai Ryue said, I thought you are not afraid of being beaten, so you could be afraid. Chiyu rolled his eyes and said, I am not a masochist. It is better not to be beaten if I can avoid it. Hai Ryue said, seeing that you are doing well now, you can cultivate the ascending Qilin chant when we go back. I have a lot of things to deal with anyway, so I don't have time to play with you. However, if you can't achieve success in the ascending Qilin chant, then you still have to cultivate your self-healing ability. Look, it is there. As she said that, Hai Ryue suddenly pointed below. Chiyu suppressed his fear and looked down. Below was a stretch of rolling mountains. The mountains did not seem very tall, but the mountains were surrounded by clouds and mist, giving it a somewhat unearthly atmosphere. Hai Ryue suddenly retracted her dragon wings, and under Chi-Yu's surprised cry, the two of them fell to the ground like meteorites. The sudden fall from thousands of meters in the sky immediately produced a strong sense of weightlessness. Chi-Yu cried out in alarm, his hands tightly hugging Hai Ryue. Perhaps he really had a talent for being a pervert. One of his hands just happened to grab the hard dragon scales on Hai Ryue's chest. Chi-Yu only felt that he was grabbing a hard little hill. At this time, he did not feel good and closed his eyes in fear. A faint black and silver air suddenly appeared in Chi-Yu's sudden fear. Hai Ryue only felt her body become light, and the thundercloud force in her body instantly increased. The Kirin's aura that Chi-Yu was emitting was like a tonic, quickly replenishing the thundercloud force that she had used up for her origin mutation. Looking at Chi-Yu's pale face, Hai Ryue couldn't help but shake her head. The dragon wings on her back slowly spread out, and the speed of their fall immediately decreased. Chi-Yu closed his eyes for who knew how long. Suddenly, he felt the ground beneath him shake and immediately shouted, Dead, dead. Then my ass. Hai Ryue slapped away Chi-Yu's hand that was grabbing our chest. Because one of her hands was hugging Chi-Yu, and the other hand was guarding against possible enemy attacks, she could only let Chi-Yu hold on to her chest for a short period of time while they were falling. Although they were separated by dragon scales, the heat from Chi-Yu's injury still brought quite a bit of sensation to her sensitive area. Of course, what she felt was complete disgust. Chi-Yu opened his eyes, and only then did he realize that his feet had landed on the ground. His legs softened, and he immediately sat on the ground. Taking a deep breath, he sighed, This is the first time I feel that the earth is so beautiful. Hai Ryue said in a low voice, I'm afraid this time will be a little troublesome. This guy's aura is very strong, so be careful and don't interfere. Saying that, she once again flew up, but this time she glided forward. Chi-Yu calmed himself down and found that he was on a small hill, and Hai Ryue was gliding down from this hill. Looking in the direction that Hai Ryue was gliding, Chi-Yu found that in the call in front of him, there was a 3-meter wide hole that was emitting light blue smoke. The smoke rose about 4 or 5 meters into the air before dissipating with the wind. Hai Ryue quickly floated above the hole. Her wings spread wide, and under the cover of a layer of white light, she quietly floated there. A loud dragon's roar came from Hai Ryue's mouth, and her dark blue hair fluttered without any wind. Chi was shocked by this sudden roar, and not long after, he found out that this was one of the dragon Zodiac's special skills, Dragon's Might. Compared to weaker creatures, it had a strong deterrent effect. The blue smoke emitted from the hole immediately scattered after the dragon's roar, and the ground trembled slightly. A terrifying aura spread out from the hole. Following a low roar, the ground trembled, and a black shadow flashed, and a monster appeared out of thin air beside the hole. The moment the monster appeared, a strange feeling arose in Chi-Yu's heart. This monster looked extremely familiar. Its entire body was covered in dense black fur. Its eyes were bright and spirited, and its body was as large as an ox. On its forehead was a pitch-black horn, and on its back was a pair of wings that spread out to the sides of its body. However, it did not fly up, nor did it let out a roar. It only raised its head to look at Hai Ryue in the sky. A blue aura came out of its mouth and nose, and its bright eyes seemed to be thinking about something. Chi-Yu's heart moved. He suddenly understood why this monster looked familiar, because this monster was actually 80% similar to the Kirin tattoo on his body, except that it had an extra pair of wings. Oh my god, did Hai Ryue want to kill a Kirin? Miss Ryue, can you not kill it? It seems to be the same as me, an ink Kirin. Perhaps it was because they were of the same branch. Chiyu loudly reminded Hai Ryue. Hai Ryue really did not want to kill it. She floated in the air, and her eyes were full of surprise. No, it is not a Kirin. This is a Xieji. Kirin's horn is spiral, but Xieji's horn is bright. Chiyu was stunned. What is a Xieji? Is it the same as you, a mutated Kirin? Hai Ryue flew behind, keeping a distance of about 100 meters from the Xieji, and said without turning her head, "Idiot, the strength of Xieji is a little weaker than Kirin, but its reputation is not less than Kirin." Xieji, a famous mythological beast produced under the ancient system of divine judgment, also known as a magic beast. According to Luan Heng and Huainanzi, cultivation chapter, its body size is as big as a cow and as small as a sheep. Its appearance is roughly similar to Kirin. Its whole body is covered with thick black hair. It usually has a single horn on its forehead, and it is said that if the horn is broken, it will die. It is seen to have wings, but most of them do not have wings. It has a high intelligence, can understand people, and will use its horn to resist dishonest and disloyal people. Later generations often raise ordinary sheep in the temple, which is used to replace Xieji. This Xieji's body is as big as a cow, and it has a pair of wings on its back. I am afraid it has the same status as you and Kirin, the king of Xieji. The strength of Xieji grows with age, and this Xieji is probably more than 1,000 years old. A human who has inherited the bloodline of the dragon. To be precise, I am 3,467 years old this year. The voice actually came from the mouth of the Xieji, but its eyes were no longer looking at Hai Ryue, but fell on Chiyu. Hai Ryue gasped. She was very clear that the strength of these ancient beasts was closely related to their age. Below 1,000 years old was a level. After a year or two, their strength could increase by a level, and after 3,000 years, it was another level. The strongest was a 10,000-year beast, and it needed at least 6 Zodiac guardian gods of 6 clouds to be able to fight against it, and it also depended on the attributes and ability of the beast. Even if it was the 3,000-year-old Xieji in front of her, with the strength of 5 clouds, it was very difficult to fight against it, and she had no confidence at all. Fortunately, this time, she encountered a Xieji. As a magic beast, Xieji had a very strong sense of hatred, and it always only attacked vicious and evil people, and would not harass human beings. Therefore, the Zodiac guardian gods of the past would not take any action against Xieji. Hai Ryue said, "Hello, Senior. I found a strong breath here just now. I didn't know it was you here, and I disturbed your rest. Please forgive me." Xieji raised its big head, and the wings on its back fluttered, and it suddenly flew up. Its speed was so fast that it left an afterimage in the air. Hai Ryue was shocked. Just when she thought that Xieji was not hostile, Xieji's flying body had instantly swept under her, and it rushed towards Chiyu like lightning. No matter who it was, when they saw a huge monster suddenly rushing towards them, they would feel fear. Seeing Xieji's body instantly enlarged, Chiyu shouted almost without hesitation, "Lin!" 3 balls of light floated out, and even Chiyu himself did not know how to control them. The purple, blue, and red balls of light quickly rotated in the invisible wind and directly flew towards Xieji. The wind was not strong, but within a certain range, it had a very high speed of rotation. The Lin formula instantly drained all the thundercloud force in Chiyu's body, and the small tornado just happened to include the other 3 light balls and almost instantly exploded. The 3 attributes of water, fire, and thunder changed in the rapid rotation of the wind. The 3 light balls shrank to the middle at the same time, and then they turned into a shuttle-shaped light, red in front and blue in the back, surrounded by purple lightning. Xieji cannot dodge it with its speed. With a bang, the light shuttle hit Xieji's chest, causing its rushing body to stop for a moment. Xieji's eyes showed a trace of surprise, and a layer of frost appeared on the black hair on its chest, and the hair inside the frost seemed to be burnt. With a bang, Siege fell heavily next to Chiyu. Chiyu did not even have time to react, and he was already kicked down by Siege. Its huge front claws pressed on his chest, and Chiyu had no doubt that even with the weight of Siege, it could crush him to death several times. Senior, Hai Ryue finally arrived, and in her hands there was a white spear of light that was 3 meters long. It was completely condensed by thundercloud force, and the place where the spear of light was pointing was the long black horn on Siege's head. Siege's front claws did not step down, but directly slashed down. Hai Ryue's heart was full of regret. She deeply blamed herself for bringing Chiyu here, and even more for trusting that Siege would not hurt humans. If the huge front claws were to fall down, Chiyu would inevitably be in danger of being cut open. She suddenly closed her eyes, and the 2 spears in her hands were thrown out, bringing her thundercloud force straight to the horn on top of Siege's head. Little girl, haven't you heard that although the horn of Siege is a vital point, it is also its strongest place? 2 black lightning bolts were released in an instant, and with 2 soft sounds, the 2 spears formed by thundercloud force disappeared at the same time. Siege said softly, "What a strong impact. Your ability is a bit strange." Hai Ryue did not hear Chiyu scream. When she opened her eyes, she just saw that Siege had slashed her attack, and its front claws had already scratched Chiyu's body. However, Chiyu was not cut open, but his clothes had disappeared. Because he had previously used the Kirin thundercloud force that he had just condensed, at this time, the black and silver Kirin image appeared on his chest. The black and silver spiral horn was particularly obvious, shining with a faint light. Siege stared at Chiyu, and the light in its eyes suddenly brightened. It looked up to the sky and made a loud and long roar. The roar rolled up and went straight into the sky, and blue smoke spurted out from its mouth and nose at the same time. Chapter 12. The Kirin pattern on his body suddenly shone brightly. Chiyu only felt that he was suddenly full of power. Black and silver light and shadow surged out, and a huge light and shadow condensed above his body. The originally flat pattern became 3-dimensional. Although it was illusory, it was indeed a huge black Kirin. The light and shadow Kirin in the air and Siege on the hill were like brothers. Kirin did not have wings, but its body was 1 size larger than Siege. The silver-brown hair extended from its neck to its tail, and the black and silver long horns on its head looked extremely powerful. Under its 4 feet, there was a cloud, which was purple, blue, red, and green respectively. The faint light and shadow constantly flickered, showing its superior aura. Siege's body trembled a little. It seemed to be very excited. It suddenly took a few steps back and knelt on the ground with its 2 forelegs. Greetings, Ambassador Kirin. After tens of thousands of years, finally, a new king of Kirin has appeared. The black hair on Chiyu's head fluttered in the wind. His black hair gradually changed from black to silver, and his eyes were as black as ink. A layer of black scales slowly appeared on the surface of his body, and a spiral black and silver long horn drilled out of the top of his head. A low voice came from his mouth. "Who awakened me from my sleep?" The low voice was full of majesty. That was definitely not the voice of Chiyu. Siege said respectfully, "Great King of Kirin, your servant Siege respectfully asks for your appearance." 2 cold lights shot out from Chiyu's pure black eyes. Hai Ryue, who was not far away, suddenly found that the pressure emitted from his body at this time could not even be compared to his own firebird. Even a powerful existence like Siege had to surrender. Winged Siege, it seems that you have the most authentic bloodline of Siege. The low voice sounded again. Chiyu slowly said, "Why did you wake me up?" Siege said, "Great Kirin King, your bloodline has actually descended to the human world. As a partner and servant of the Kirin clan, I am willing to follow you and serve you." Hairu muttered to herself, "Oh my God." It turns out that the legend of Siege being the companion of King Kirin is actually true. Chiyu said calmly, My bloodline has been passed down for hundreds of generations. When I was in deep sleep, I sensed danger, so I chose to appear in this generation's inheritor. My blood vessels had already awakened under the effect of a very powerful Buddhist power. My divine sense will also gradually fuse with this human's body. Winged Xieji, you Xieji magical beasts, still remember the promise of your ancestors. Very well, in that case, you will become my successor shadow from now on. Are you willing? Ryua didn't understand what King Kirin meant, but Xieji was extremely excited when it heard this sentence. Its huge body trembled slightly. Thank you, great Kirin King. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. This time, its two hind claws also bent at the same time, and its whole body was completely lying on the ground. Kirin King said calmly, "You don't have to thank me. The reason why I gave you this opportunity was because I was forced by the situation. The cultivation of the Kirin clan takes a long time. Xieji and Kirin's bloodline are connected. Only with your help can my successor have the strength to face the enemy faster. Although you will forever be in a deep slumber during his lifetime, when you complete your mission, when my successor truly becomes the king of the Qilin clan, your wings will definitely evolve." Yes, great Kirin King. Xieji lowered its head and lay on the ground motionlessly. Qiyu turned to Ryua and said calmly, "Are you wondering why I appeared? In the inheritance of the Kirin's bloodline, I shouldn't have appeared. However, I am Kirin King. I have a divine sense that ordinary Kirin can't compare to. Therefore, I can stay awake before my successor completely fuses with the breath of Kirin in my bloodline. However, if Xieji didn't appear, I wouldn't have appeared. Later, my successor will sleep for a period of time. As the successor of the dragon, you must protect his safety." Ryua nodded and said, "He is my partner. I will." The black eyes swept across Ryua's body. Although her body was covered with solid armor, Ryua still had a feeling of being seen through. "Do you really think of him as a partner? No matter what kind of person, as long as he is the successor of the Kirin clan, then he will have a strong self-esteem. The seed you put in his heart, when it bears a bitter fruit, only you will have to bear it. There is one thing I want to tell you. In fact, the dragon and Xieji are the same. They both have a certain amount of Kirin's bloodline. As the earliest ancient beast, Kirin has a strong attraction and ability to help strange beasts that have its own bloodline. As for how you choose, it is up to you. Don't mislead others and yourself." Ryua's face changed slightly and said, "Senior, I don't understand what you mean." Kirin King didn't answer. His body had already floated up, and the shadow of Ink Kirin in the air floated behind him. Kirin King's hands moved in front of his body, and the shadow behind him floated out. In the blink of an eye, it had enveloped Xieji's body. Xieji let out a long and cheerful roar. When its huge body merged with Ink Kirin's shadow, Xieji retracted its wings. Along with the shadow that was a few times larger than it, it also became illusory. Qiyu's body floated in the air. The Sarira bead on his left hand suddenly emitted a layer of green light. When the image of Xieji, which had merged with the influence of Kirin, came in front of him at the same time, Qiyu's body seemed to be enlarged in an instant, and the black and silver light instantly flowed into his body. The green light on the Sarira bead floated slightly, moved up his arm, and entered Qiyu's body through his nostrils. Taking a deep breath, Kirin King exclaimed, "What a strong Buddha nature! With it around, it is enough to stabilize the mind of my successor to accept the final fusion with my bloodline. Little girl, you don't have to tell him anything. All the cultivation and abilities, let him experience it himself. I am going. The Kirin clan will definitely shine again in the Yanhuang land." Ha ha! Qiyu's body floated to the ground. When his body lay steadily on the ground, the black, silver, and green light converged at the same time. The strong sense of oppression was just like when it appeared and suddenly disappeared. Qiyu's eyes closed, and his hair returned to black. The layer of scales on his body also disappeared. At this moment, Ryua discovered that when the light of Xieji and Kirin merged into Qiyu's body, all the clothes on his body had turned into powder and disappeared. At this moment, he returned to his original appearance, and his body suddenly became naked. The symbol of man was presented in front of her without reservation. Perhaps because the yang qi was too strong, at this moment, Chi-Yu's long spear was pointing to the sky. Hai Ryue was stunned for a moment before she recovered. The appearance of the soul of Kirin King previously had really surprised her. The Zodiac guardian god had been passed down for so many generations, and this was the first time such a situation had happened. Moreover, where did the 3,000-year-old Xieji go? What did the shadow that Kirin King mentioned mean? Hai Ryue was very clear that no one could bring her the answer to these questions, not even Zagru. Although Zagru had inherited the Buddha's power of 10 lives, he had not yet fully integrated it. Moreover, he only inherited the Buddha's power, but did not have the memories of the previous masters. This strange situation was really unpredictable. She helplessly lifted Chi-Yu up. Perhaps the words left by the soul of Kirin King had a certain effect, or perhaps the breath of Kirin on Chi-Yu's body had brought some stimulation to Hai Ryue. At this time, she no longer held Chi-Yu under her armpit, but stretched her arms forward and held him in front of her. Although Hai Ryue's body was covered with scales, these scales were also transformed from her body. When she came into direct contact with the naked Chi-Yu, her heart could not help but beat faster. There was shyness, helplessness, and some indescribable feelings. This seemingly ruffian guy seemed to be changing faster and faster. Just the ability that he suddenly used to attack Xieji did not seem to be something that a newly awakened Kirin could do. With a sigh, Hai Ryue flapped the dragon wings on her back and floated up into the sky with Chi-Yu's body, heading towards her draconic field courtyard. October was one of the most beautiful seasons in Jing City. Today was October 8th. The traditional festival of the Yanwang Republic had just ended. In the early morning, Jing City was a little crowded because office workers and students had to resume their work and study. Qingbei University, as one of the most famous universities in the Yanwang Republic, was as famous as Huajing University. The students in front of the school gate were constantly pouring into the school. A sapphire blue sports car made a beautiful turn in the street, not far away, and instantly accelerated. With the pleasant sound of the engine, it had already arrived in front of Qingbei University. With a screech, it steadily stopped in front of the school gate. Ah, it's the Lamborghini Batmobile. The sudden appearance of the top-notch sports car immediately caused a commotion in front of the school gate. The gazes of the students were almost uncontrollably attracted by it. Regardless of male or female, all of them were mesmerized by the charming sapphire blue color and fantasized that they could become the owner of this car. The car door opened up, and an 18 or 19-year-old youth walked out of the car with a big bag in his hand. Although his appearance was not very handsome, it was very harmonious. With a height of more than 8 meters, broad shoulders, and a mischievous smile on his face, it was full of charm under the contrast of the sapphire blue Lamborghini. If it wasn't for the high quality of the students in Qingbei University, perhaps it would have already caused some girls to scream. Of course, even if they screamed, it was mainly for the super sports car. Beautiful girls in Qingbei University, I, Chi-Yu, am here. The youth who came out of the car was Chi-Yu. He looked at the tall school gate in front of him and sighed. Pay attention to your image. Go find Ming Ming first. A cold voice came from a driver's seat in the car. Chi-Yu turned his head to look at Hai Ryue, who was in the driver's seat, and said, "Got it, T-Rex. You can go back." After saying this, he didn't look back and walked into the school. Hai Ryue looked at his back and snorted. She said to herself, "This guy is becoming more and more arrogant. It seems that I should consider letting him re-undergo potential development training." After Tian, Hai Ryue brought Chi-Yu back to Longyu Courtyard. Chi-Yu went into a deep sleep. He slept for 100 days and even missed the start of school. He didn't wake up until the end of September. Since it was going to be a long holiday, he simply waited until the end of the 11th before Hai Ryue brought him to Qingbei University. After Chi-Yu woke up, there didn't seem to be any changes. He was still the same as before. He was neither cold nor warm to Hai Ryue. He didn't offend her, but he also didn't act close to her. Hai Ryue had imparted the cultivation method of the ascending Qilin law to him over the past 10 days, and Uncle Zhou had also taught Qiyu some of the combat techniques he was proficient in. After sleeping for 100 days, Qiyu was like a big sponge. He changed his previous lazy behavior and quickly absorbed all the knowledge. Of course, this was only in theory. He needed to constantly practice in order to make progress. The reason why Hai Ryue was more tolerant of Qi Yu was closely related to his 100 days of sleep. In these 100 days, Hai Ryue tried to delay her work as much as possible. Every day, she cultivated by Qi Yu's side. 100 days wasn't long, but it wasn't short either. The Kirin aura on Qi Yu's body was much stronger than before. This helped her a lot. She directly cultivated from the middle of the 5th cloud to the late 5th cloud. King Kirin's soul, Xieji Shadow, and Qi Yu's awakening ability imperceptibly changed Hai Ryue's attitude towards him. Although Hai Ryue didn't want to admit it, she understood in her heart that Kirin's importance to the Zodiac guardian god was gradually manifesting. Walking through the school gate, Qi Yu was immediately attracted by the novel scenery of the campus. He didn't care about the strange gazes of the surrounding students and directly walked into the campus. Qingbei University gave Qi Yu a kind of ancient feeling. When Qi Yu heard Hai Ryue say that he was going to study here, he was so shocked that his jaw almost dropped. It should be known that Qingbei University was the holy temple of countless students' dreams. When he asked Hai Ryue how she did it, Hai Ryue just calmly said one sentence: "Money makes the world go round." Qingbei University's campus was located in the northwest suburbs of the capital. It was developed on the ruins of several ancient royal gardens. Qingbei University's campus was surrounded by institutions of higher learning and famous gardens. The trees in the gardens were beautiful, and the water was clear. The clear Wanquan River meandered through the hinterland, forming many lakes and creeks. Feeling the ancient buildings, all kinds of green plants, and those small lakes in the campus, if he didn't see the words Qingbei University outside, perhaps Qi Yu would have thought that he came to a park. Qi Yu was walking forward when his eyes suddenly lit up. A young girl who looked slightly older than him was walking towards him. She wore jeans and a white shirt. Her long black hair was combed into a ponytail. She looked fresh and refreshing. She had an oval face and a pair of big watery eyes. Her figure was moderate. Although she couldn't be said to be extremely beautiful, her delicate and pretty face had a bit of an otherworldly aura. She was definitely an impulsive beauty. Her jeans outlined the perfect curve of her lower body. Although the fullness of her chest couldn't be considered fiery, it was just enough to fill a palm. Both her hands held a few thick books as she slowly walked towards his direction. Qi Yu was secretly happy in his heart. He didn't think that his luck would be so good. He just arrived at Qingbei University, and he already met a little beauty. He can't let go of this kind of opportunity. While thinking, he took large strides towards the young girl. When he was around 5 meters away from the young girl, he intentionally tilted his head to look at the lotus leaves in the lake. If he followed the normal path, his position would just brush past the young girl. Qi Yu's calculations were very accurate. His nose just smelled a trace of faint fragrance. Looking at the lotus leaves, he immediately turned around. Like this, his body turned horizontally and his back was facing the young girl. Qi Yu's calculations were completely correct. He only felt his back tremble and a light cry came. Sorry, I didn't pay attention." Qi Yu hurriedly turned around and pretended to be flustered as he said. The book in the young girl's hand fell to the ground due to the collision. Qi Yu hurriedly squatted down to pick it up. The young girl was stunned by the collision. She also hurriedly squatted down to pick up her book. Just as she picked up a book, Qi Yu also happened to grab that book. The edge of his palm just happened to touch her slender fingers. The young girl's hand retracted, and the book fell into Qi Yu's hands. Sorry. Qi Yu repeatedly apologized. He tried his best to control his gaze from looking at the young girl's sensitive parts. After interacting with Ji Ming and Hai Ryue, he understood more and more how important a first impression is to a girl. The two of them stood up and got closer. The faint fragrance on the young girl's body couldn't help but make Qi Yu a little intoxicated. He handed the book to the young girl and pretended to have an awkward expression as he scratched his head and said, I'm really sorry. I didn't see you. The young girl's face revealed a trace of a smile. Her voice was very gentle. It's okay. Pay attention next time. The lotus leaves in autumn are really beautiful. Chiyu's heart was overjoyed. He knew that he had met a gentle beauty. He hurriedly said, Senior sister, I'm new here. I'm late. Can you tell me how to get to the academic affairs office? The young girl looked at him strangely and said, The school's registration time is limited. If you're late, I'm afraid. Chiyu, it's okay. I've already asked someone to help me apply for leave. You just need to tell me where the academic affairs office is. The young girl half turned around and pointed to the back. Go through the corridor in front of you. Go straight ahead. Turn left and then right. That building is the first floor, room 103. That's the academic affairs office. Thank you, senior sister. I just bumped into you, but you helped me. I'm really sorry. Can I ask senior sister's name? I'll treat you to a meal when I'm free. The young girl covered her mouth and chuckled. You little brats, you're getting more and more tricks. Remember, you have to focus on your studies. After that, she continued to walk in the direction she was supposed to go. Chi was really embarrassed this time. He didn't expect that his trick would be seen through by the other party. He looked at the young girl's back and shouted, Senior sister, you haven't told me your name yet. The young girl didn't turn around. Her pleasant voice came. You'll know soon. A good start is half the battle. But this time, it didn't have a good start. Chiyu couldn't help but feel a little depressed. He shook his head helplessly. Fortunately, he got the location of the academic affairs office from the young girl. He tightened the strap of his backpack and strode toward the academic affairs office. Qingbei University Academic Affairs Office. Chiyu stood in front of a big table. Behind the table sat a man who looked to be in his 50s. It was the head of the academic affairs office. He was holding Chiyu's admission letter and carefully looked at it. After a while, he immediately smiled and said, So you're Boss Hai's younger brother. Don't be polite. Please take a seat. Chiyu's legs went soft. He almost fell to the ground. What? That Tyrannosaurus Rex, Hai Ryue, actually said I'm her younger brother? Fortunately, he calmed down with the Saraira bead. He sat down on the chair in front of the academic affairs office's long table. The head of the academic affairs office smiled and said, Young man, your sister has made a lot of contributions to our school. She also graduated from this school. I hope you can be as outstanding as her. Okay, now tell me what subject you want to study. Your sister didn't choose this for you. Subject? Chiyu hesitated for a moment. He really didn't know what he wanted to study. He didn't even graduate from middle school. He hadn't touched a book for a few years. Entering such a high school directly made him a little confused. When he was young, Chiyu was very eager to learn more knowledge. Even his best brother, Vol, didn't know that when he was in primary school, he was an outstanding student every year. But as he grew up year by year, he got used to the fickleness of human nature. Although he was only a teenager, he was disappointed in this society. Or rather, he was disappointed in himself. Thus, he chose to fall and gave up. Just now, when he took his first step into Qingbei University's campus, Chiyu suddenly had a feeling of his blood boiling. After all, this was once the place of his dreams. But time had already passed. He was already 19 years old. The things he had left behind were too many. There was already no chance for him to start over. Before coming to Qingbei University, Hai Ryue once told him that letting him come here to study wasn't because she hoped that he could learn anything, but because she wanted him to be able to change his temperament in the learning atmosphere here and learn some philosophy of life. The head of academic affairs was obviously very respectful to Hai Ryue. He said a little too enthusiastically, Why don't you choose the foreign languages department? Our foreign languages department has been developing vigorously these few years. We need young people like you to join us. Chiyu smiled bitterly in his heart. I also want to choose the foreign languages department. No matter which university, the foreign languages department would definitely have the most beauties. However, other than knowing the 26 letters, he couldn't even remember the English month. Wouldn't going to the foreign languages department be like listening to a book from heaven? I've decided, Chiyu said solemnly. The head of academic affairs smiled. You're choosing the foreign languages department? No, I'm choosing the philosophy department. Chiyu's words almost made the head of academic affairs jaw drop. What did you say? Which department are you choosing? The head of academic affairs thought that there was something wrong with his ears. Chiyu also smiled. I'm choosing the philosophy department. Don't you think that I'm a good student with thoughts and morals? The head of academic affairs looked at the naughty glint in Chiyu's eyes and muttered to himself, no matter how I look at it, you don't look like a student from the philosophy department. Does Director Hai know about your choice? Chiyu shrugged his shoulders and said, she said that I'll make my own decisions. She didn't ask me for anything. After asking again and again, the head of academic affairs was sure that Chiyu wasn't joking. He had no choice but to handle the admission procedures for him. The philosophy department has 8 main subjects. You'll major in one subject every semester. You can also choose some subjects from other departments to take as an elective. Director Hai has already paid your fees. From tomorrow onwards, you can officially go to class. Your dormitory is in the school's dormitory area, Building 11, Room 603. It's a 4-bedroom and 1 living room shared with 3 other students. You can collect your books later and familiarize yourself with the school environment. Welcome to Qingbei University. Walking out of the academic affairs office, Chiyu clearly felt much more relaxed. He inwardly laughed. I'm afraid that Hai Ruyue would never expect that he would choose the philosophy department. When she finds out, she might fly into a rage. Suddenly, his phone rang. Before he came to school, Hai Ruyue had already given him a charger. Now, Chiyu could be considered to have a real phone. Looking at the number on the phone, Chiyu couldn't help inwardly sighing. Speak of the devil. T-Rex, you're calling me right after we separated? Could it be that you've already fallen in love with me? The moment the call connected, Chiyu teased. Chiyu's judgment was right. Right now, Hai Ruyue was flying into a rage. Her voice came from the phone and could be heard within a 10-meter radius. Chiyu, you bastard. Who allowed you to choose the philosophy department? Don't you know that the philosophy department has no future? Do you think Qingbei University is a kindergarten? I've spent so much effort to get you in. You're good. You actually chose such a lousy subject. Chiyu snappily said, Hey, lower your voice. I'm not deaf. I can hear you. What's wrong with the philosophy department? Didn't you say that you wanted to come to Qingbei University to learn how to be a person? Isn't philosophy just like that? What's better than this? You also know that I'm an unemployed youth who didn't even graduate from junior high. What department do you want me to choose? Don't tell me you want me to listen to the Bible. All right, I've already chosen. It's decided. Oh, right. Boss Hai, I still have a question. When did you become my sister? If I really had a T-Rex sister like you, I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to live to this age. Wah-huh. After saying the last sentence filled with sarcasm, Chiyu immediately hung up the phone. His heart was filled with joy. He finally left Hai Ruyue's side. Now she can't come and find trouble with him, right? He has always been a person who adapts to circumstances. What will happen to Hai Ruyue in the future is a matter for the future. Feeling relaxed and happy, he followed the guidance of the Dean of Academic Affairs and went to get his book. After asking around, he walked back to his dormitory. Qingbei University is worthy of being one of the best universities in the entire Yanwang Republic. The various facilities in the campus are extremely complete. Chiyu is very satisfied with the environment here. However, he is not satisfied with the things that he was looking forward to. Other than the impulsive girl that he saw when he first entered the school, the entire journey was filled with frightening girls. His pair of perverted eyes could only put on the appearance of a gentleman. Without looking sideways, he walked towards the direction of the dorm that he inquired about. Qingbei University's dorm building can't be said to be luxurious. However, it gives people a refreshing feeling. No matter if it is the floor or the walls, there's not a speck of dust. The windows are bright and clean. One look, and you can tell that someone has carefully cleaned it. The dorm building has 18 floors. Chiyu's dorm is on the 6th floor. Although it is currently class time, there are some students who don't have classes that are still walking around the dorm building. Taking the elevator directly to the 6th floor, Chiyu walked to the door of his dorm. After confirming that the number 603 is correct, he then picked up the key that was given to him by the Academic Affairs Office to open the door. As soon as he entered, Chiyu heard an unusual sound. In, be gentle. Faster. For a hooligan who has seen thousands of AVs and has a wealth of theoretical experience, this sound can't be more familiar. Oh my god, could it be that I accidentally came to some Japanese AV set? Chiyu carefully placed his luggage on the floor and quietly walked towards the direction of the sound. The dorm is just like what the academic affairs office said. It is a house with 4 bedrooms and 1 living room. There are 2 bathrooms and a large kitchen. The sound is coming from one of the bedrooms. Chiyu carefully came to the bedroom door and looked in through the crack of the door. Immediately, he saw a scene that makes his blood boil. It is not a secret between a man and a woman, as he imagined. Chiyu is dumbstruck to see 2 fair-skinned women who are completely naked touching each other. Their appearance is extremely beautiful. They both have beautiful long hair. One of them has black hair, and the other has dyed it a wine red. Chiyu has seen many naked women in AVs, but this is his first time seeing a real naked woman at such a close distance. His nose feels warm, and he almost vomits blood. Fair and slender jade legs, flawless jade back, delicate and lovely perky buttocks all attract Chiyu's beastly blood. Even the 2 girls are extremely intoxicated as they groan and touch each other. They don't even notice that there's a ruffian with burning eyes outside. I can't, I'm going to die. Chiyu only felt a burst of dryness in his mouth. How he wished that he could immediately rush in and become the main character among them. He wants to be the king and 2 queens. But he found that his legs feel like they've been drilled. Although his heart longs for it, he can't take these few short steps no matter what. Chapter 13. The 2 girls in the room were in various positions. Due to their excitement, their delicate skin was covered with a layer of faint pink. Their hands kept moving faster and faster. Chiyu didn't know how long he had been standing there. Finally, 2 excited screams rang out almost at the same time. In the midst of trembling, their movements finally stopped. The sound of heavy panting could be heard. The 2 girls seemed to be very tired. They hugged each other and lay on the bed. Both of them looked happy. Chiyu swallowed a mouthful of saliva. He knew that he could not watch any longer. He hurriedly tiptoed towards the dormitory door. Perhaps it was because of his guilty conscience, or perhaps it was because he had stood for too long, but his legs were a little stiff. Chiyu had only taken 3 steps when his legs suddenly tripped over each other. He staggered and immediately bumped into a table in the hall, producing an ear-piercing sound. "Who is it?" A frightened voice came from the room. What followed was the sound of clothes being put on. Chiyu's reaction was not slow. He quickly ran to the dormitory door and knocked on it a few times. He pretended that nothing had happened. "Is anyone here?" Who said that women took a long time to put on clothes? Chiyu had just knocked a few times when the girl with wine-red hair from the previous bedroom walked out. Her hair was combed into a simple ponytail, but it looked a little messy. She wore a short skirt and a loose t-shirt. Obviously, because she was in a hurry, her clothes were unbuttoned. You could even see the 2 firm buds that were nervously maintained. There were 2 cute dimples on the girl's pretty face. Although she tried her best to remain calm, the panic in her eyes couldn't be hidden from a discerning eye. How did you get in? Who are you?" The girl looked very nervous. She picked up a glass bottle from the table with a backhand. Chiyu was startled. He also felt guilty. He quickly said, "Hello, I'm a new student. I should be staying here." As he said that, he waved the key in his hand. "Nonsense. This is the female dormitory. How could a guy like you live here?" The young girl's hand that was holding the glass bottle was already raised, as if she was going to fight for her life. At this time, another young girl also walked out of the room. She was a little taller than the first girl, about 7 meters tall. She wore a pink shirt, and her long black hair draped over her back. In terms of disguise, she was obviously better. She hurriedly said to the young girl who raised the bottle, "Ching-er, ask clearly first." Chiyu smiled bitterly. "This is really my dormitory. Otherwise, how could I open the door with a key? Did the dean give me the wrong key?" The girl called Ching-er asked nervously, "How long have you been here?" Chiyu hurriedly said, "I just came in. Aren't you just knocking on the door?" Ching-er heaved a sigh of relief and put down her raised hand. The girl in the pink shirt looked at the table that was slightly moved with a meaningful gaze. Chiyu asked curiously, "Is this really the female dormitory? How is that possible?" Even if the school was more open now, It would not allow boys and girls to live together. Qing'er snorted and said, "Why would I lie to you? The school's dormitory from the 1st to the 9th floor are all female dormitories. The male dormitory is only above that. Tell me honestly, where did you get the key?" "Oh, I know. Are you Ming Ming's boyfriend?" "Ming Ming? Which Ming Ming are you talking about? Is it Ji Ming Ming?" Chiyu's heart slightly moved. "Of course. So you really are Ming Ming's boyfriend. That girl is too bold. She actually gave you the key and let you into our dormitory. Umph. She's almost out of class anyway. We'll interrogate her when she comes back." Chiyu shrugged his shoulders and walked to the table to pull out a chair and sat down. "I still haven't asked for the names of the two beauties." Qing'er's nervousness had clearly disappeared. She snorted and said, "Why should I tell you? You can't tell. You don't have anything outstanding about you. Why would Ming Ming like you? She is one of the two beauties of our Qingbei University." Chiyu asked curiously, "Two beauties? Aren't there three beauties? Including the two of you, it should be three." As the saying goes, flattery doesn't work. Hearing Chiyu's words, the two girls' expressions clearly eased up. Qing'er snorted and said, "Fine. My name is Su Qing. I'm the same as Ming Ming. I'm from the Foreign Languages Department. She is Shun Yun, the beauty of the High Energy Physics Department. The two of us are not among the two beauties. What about you? What's your name? It's already October. Why did you just enter the school?" Chiyu never needed a draft when he lied. "Hello, my name is Chiyu. Because I got sick a few days ago, I entered the school a bit late. I'm a new student in the philosophy department." As he said that, his eyes were already roaming around the two beauties' delicate bodies. Thinking of the fire-breathing scene from before, Chiyu's heartbeat couldn't help but speed up. Su Qing looked at Chiyu, whose eyes were sparkling. "What are you looking at? Haven't you seen a beauty before? Good, Ming Ming. When she comes back, see how I'll deal with her." She actually let a man into our dorm. Just as Chiyu was about to get close to the two beauties, the dorm door opened. Ming Ming, dressed in casual clothes, walked in from outside. She held a simple book bag with a few books in it. As soon as she pushed the door open, she was busy changing her slippers. As she did so, she said, "Qing Qing, you ran away again today. The teacher said that if you don't go next time, your credits for this semester will be 0. Hey, Chiyu, you're here so soon." After changing her slippers, she saw Chiyu looking at her with a faint smile. "Ji Ming Ming." Su Qing roared angrily. "You damned girl. You actually let your boyfriend come to our dorm without telling us in advance. You know." Speaking up to hear, she couldn't help but blush and steal a glance at Xinyan. Ji Ming Ming's face also turned red. "Qing Qing, don't talk nonsense. Chiyu is my cousin, not my boyfriend." Chiyu stood up and said with a smile, "If you're willing, it's not a problem for you to make a guest appearance. By the way, since this is the female dorm, why did the administration give me the key to this dorm? It can't be that you want me to live with you, right?" Ji Ming Ming said snappily, "That sounds so bad. What do you mean live together? It can only be said to live under the same roof." Shen Yun said in shock, "Ming Ming, you can't be serious, right? This is the female dorm. How can a man live here?" Ji Ming Ming walked a few steps to Shun Yun's side and whispered something in her ear. Her eyes had a pleading look. Hearing her words, Shun Yun's expression eased a little, but the way she looked at Chi Yu was a little strange. "So that's how it is, no wonder." Su Qing said, "Sister Yun, it can't be. Do you really want this guy to live here?" Shun Yun whispered something in Su Qing's ear. Su Qing's expression also changed, and the way she looked at Chi Yu also became strange. "So it's like this. Then he's quite pitiful. He's not much of a threat to us, but I still feel a little strange letting a man live here." Ming Ming pulled Su Qing's hand and pleaded, "Good Qing Qing, don't worry. I'll definitely take good care of him. I won't let him hinder our lives. I have no other choice. If it wasn't for that reason, the school wouldn't have agreed to let him live in our female dorm." Su Qing and Shenyan looked at each other and said, "All right, but if he wants to live here, we have to add a few rules. After all, he's a man." Ji Ming Ming said happily, "No problem. I'll agree on his behalf." Chi was confused by their attitude. Just as he was about to ask, he was pulled into another bedroom by Ji Ming Ming. The layout of the bedroom was very simple. There was a computer desk, a laptop, a single bed, a desk and some books, and 2 wardrobes. Ming Ming, what did you say to them just now? Do I really have to live here? Although Chi felt strange, he couldn't help but be a little excited. He could live with 3 beauties. Although they each had their own bedroom, they would often see each other. If something happened outside, it would be reasonable. Especially the other 2 beauties were obviously very open. Ji Ming Ming said in a low voice, "Lower your voice. Don't let them hear you. You know how hard it was for me to convince them. Also, you have to cooperate. I told them that you're not in good health and have physiological defects. You need someone to take care of you. As your cousin, I can only let you live with me so that it's convenient to take care of you." Chi smiled lewdly and said, "No problem. You can say whatever defects you want. If I live with you, this bed seems a little small." Ji Ming Ming knocked Chi head hard and said angrily, "What are you thinking, you big pervert? I'm warning you. You better be careful. I'll let you live here because you're Kieran. Now, only I can be by your side to protect you. This is my responsibility as a Zodiac guardian. Don't think too much." Chi said painfully, "I understand. Don't worry. I've already said that you're my good brother. How can I think too much? But it's not a problem if I think too much about your 2 good sisters, right? Oh, by the way, what did you tell them about my physical defects?" Ji Mingming chuckled and said, "I told them that you have a congenital heart disease and have homosexual tendencies. In order for you to take care of your body and not come into contact with men outside, I specially let you stay here to experience the atmosphere of the opposite sex." "What? You actually said that I'm gay?" Chi said angrily. Ji Ming smiled and said, "Of course, if I didn't say that, do you think you can live here so easily? If Ching and Big Sister Yun reported to the school, no matter how powerful Big Sister Ruyue is, it's impossible for her to let you live with us girls. You don't know, but Big Sister Yun and Ching have been classmates since elementary school. From middle school to high school, all the way until they were admitted to Qingbei University, they were always together. I saw that there seemed to be some ambiguity between the 2 of them, so I said that you're gay so that I can gain some sympathy." Chi righteously said, "As a man, being called a homosexual by a great beauty like you is definitely the greatest humiliation to me. If I can endure it, what can I do?" Ji Ming snorted and said, "Then are you going to bear it or not?" Chi looked at the bedroom and said with a wretched smile, "Then I'll bear it. In order to promote the growth of the cohabiting beauty, in order to promote the unity of the students in Qingbei University, I'll bear it." Ji Ming made a vomiting expression. "You're so disgusting. You pervert. God is really blind to actually let you become Kieran's successor." Chi said with concern, Ming, how many months has it been? Do you want me to take you to the hospital? No matter what, it's a new life. You must not go for an abortion. If it really can't be done, I'll take the responsibility and be a cheap father." Ji Ming was stunned for a moment, then immediately understood. She frowned and said, "Scram." Chi felt wronged and said, "I'm just worried about you. Why are you so fierce? I'm so good to you. I'm willing to take responsibility for anything that isn't mine." "You," Ji Ming burst out laughing. "I really can't do anything to a shameless hooligan like you." Chi laughed and said, "Chasing a woman, you have to be bold, careful, and thick-skinned. This is the traditional secret. As the saying goes, if a man isn't bad, a woman won't love him. If a man isn't a hooligan, a woman won't sleep with him. All right, get out of here. Your bedroom is right across from mine." Ji Ming really couldn't stand it, but she didn't know why. Although Chi's words were vulgar, it only made her feel relaxed and not disgusted. Chi was pushed out of the door by Ming. Before closing the door, she said to him, "Sister Ryue told me that your identity is special. If you want to go somewhere, you must call me. I have to protect you at all times. Also, since I told them that you're gay, don't look at them with that kind of perverted eyes. Restrain yourself, or you'll be kicked out of the house sooner or later." Yes, cute cousin, I understand. Although he was said to be gay, Chi was in a good mood. He was excited to be able to live with 3 beautiful women. Chi's bedroom was dark. There was no sunlight. After all, He couldn't fight with a few girls. But the room was very spacious. The layout inside was the same as Ji Mingming's room. Even the bedding was brand new. Qiyu thought about it and understood that Mingming knew that he was coming and specially prepared it for him. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but feel a bit warm in his heart. He opened his bag and hung the brand new clothes in the cabinet. These clothes naturally weren't what he originally had. They were specially bought for him by Hai Ryue according to his height and figure. Originally, Qiyu didn't want it, but Hai Ryue said that after he graduated, he would return it to her. So, Qiyu had no choice but to accept it. Although he didn't have a good impression of Hai Ryue, he still had to give some face to his new master, Uncle Zhou. As soon as he finished packing, there was a knock on the bedroom door. Ming Ming, no need knock, come in, Qiyu said carelessly. The door opened, but the person who came in was not Ming Ming. Su Qing walked into the room with a piece of paper in her hand. Looking at Qiyu, she raised her head and said, "Here, this is the rules of the dormitory I just wrote. If you don't follow it in the future, we will kick you out." Qiyu took the paper and saw that there were 10 rules written on it. First, don't make noise in the dormitory. Don't bring men back to the dormitory. Second, wash your feet when you return to the dormitory. Don't peek at your roommate's clothes. Third, if you want to take a bath, you have to submit an application 1 day in advance. Fourth, don't fight with others to go to the bathroom. If everyone wants to go, you have to be the last. Fifth, don't enter other people's rooms unless invited. Sixth, don't smoke or drink in the dormitory. Seventh, don't stay out all night without permission. Looking at the strict rules of the specific place to wash your underwear and the time to go to the bathroom, Qiyu said with grief and indignation, "It's been so many years since the liberation. Why do you still want me to sign the Nanjing Treaty? Can it be a few less this? What less? Do you want to do it or not? Just say it. If you don't want to do it, move out immediately and live wherever you want." Su Qing's temper was obviously very bad, and there was no room for negotiation. Qiyu smiled bitterly. I will sign it, okay? I will endure it again." "What do you mean by enduring it? You don't know how many men want to live with us 3 beauties. It's good that we didn't ask you to wash our clothes and cook for us. The school has a cafeteria. You can eat there. We all open our own food. Of course, if you want to eat together, you have to pay for the food and wash the dishes." Qiyu hesitated for a moment before asking, "How much is the food fee?" Su Qing thought for a moment and said, "Our monthly food expenses are about 1,000 yuan, and it's all done by Sister Yin, so Sister Yin's food expenses are relatively less. Ming Ming and I are girls, so we eat less, so you pay 500 yuan a month. Fair, right? Of course, don't forget to wash the dishes." Qiyu scratched his head and shook it firmly, and said, "I will go to the cafeteria to eat. I won't mix with you." "Oh my God, the monthly food expenses are 500 yuan, and there is also a room charge here. My social relief is not enough. Although Ryue has already paid the tuition, I can't ask her for money again." As a man, Qiyu still has this bit of backbone. He resisted the temptation to taste the beauty's cooking and refused Su Qing's proposal. Su Qing was a little surprised and said, "Sister Yun's cooking is very delicious. Don't you want to try it?" Qiyu shook his head and said, "Since I was young, what I'm most afraid of is washing the dishes. Forget it. Moreover, I eat a lot, so eating in a cafeteria is more suitable. I heard that Qingbei University's cafeteria doesn't limit the amount of rice and steamed buns you can eat, as long as you don't waste it." Su Qing looked at Qiyu with a puzzled expression. She knew how powerful Ming Ming's family was. Since they accepted Qiyu to live here, they had to squeeze a little from him. Otherwise, wouldn't they, the beauties, suffer a loss? Although the contract she wrote was mostly a hard and fast rule, but there was also an element of joking with Qiyu. For this new roommate, Su Qing, because of the previous awkwardness, so she gave him a show of strength. But she didn't think that Qiyu would refuse so decisively, and even said that he didn't like washing dishes. At this time, she saw a bit of helplessness in Qiyu's eyes. Perhaps it was because Ji Ming said that her cousin has a congenital heart disease, so she didn't want to play anymore. "Okay, then do as you wish. The rent will be split between the 4 of us, 400 yuan per month. When the time comes, You can teach it to Sister Yin. Su Qing left, and Chiyu sat on his bed in a somewhat dispirited manner. He smashed his fist on the bed and cursed in his heart. A penny really stumps a hero. It seems that I really have to earn some money when I have the opportunity. But when he thought of money, he suddenly slapped his head. All right, I have an appointment with Vol this afternoon. How could I forget about this? I have to leave quickly. After Chiyu woke up from his deep sleep, he immediately contacted Vol. Naturally, he couldn't tell Vol the truth. He just told Vol that he met a relative and was going to sponsor him to go to university. Vol was now attending classes at a private school. Coincidentally, his school was only 20 minutes away from Qingbei University, and he could reach it directly by walking. Today, Chiyu came to report. He expected that he wouldn't be going to class immediately, so he specifically called Vol to meet. The two brothers haven't seen each other for a few months. If it wasn't for Vol's help, so many things wouldn't have happened to him. For this good brother, Chiyu has always been grateful. Ming, I have to go out for a while. After Chiyu put down all his luggage, he suddenly felt relaxed. He walked out of his bedroom and greeted Ming's room. The door opened, and Ming stuck her head out. What are you going to do? Familiarize yourself with the campus environment? Then I'll take you there. Chiyu shook his head and said, No, I'm going to meet a friend. Do you still want to go with me? Ming said, Can I not go? Besides, if you get sick on the road, someone has to send you to the hospital. Chiyu rolled his eyes and said, Do as you wish. Anyway, it's not a painful thing to travel with a beauty. We'll go now. It's already noon. I'll treat you to lunch. Thank you for the betting. He wasn't a generous person, but he understood the principle of repaying kindness. Ever since Ming beat up Yin Xiaoyi for him last time, he wanted to find an opportunity to repay it. Ming smiled and said, Okay, then let's go. After that, she didn't change her clothes. She still wore her casual clothes and walked out of the bedroom. Su Qing and Shunyan were watching TV in the living room. Seeing the two of them going out, Shunyan smiled and said, Ming, come back early. We have a new member today. I'll cook something delicious for you in the evening. Ming smiled and said, That's great. I love to eat Sister Yun's food. We've only lived together for a month, and I feel that I've gained some weight. Su Qing looked at Ming with some jealousy and said, Be careful that I don't tickle you. Are you trying to make me angry? Look at your thin waist. You're still fat. Let's go. We don't want to be the third wheel. Chiyu thought in his heart, You don't want us to be the third wheel. However, although he was lascivious, he wasn't despicable. What he saw was seen. He didn't have so much mouth to talk about women behind their backs. The two left the dormitory and walked out of the school along the tree-lined avenue in the campus. Ming walked in the school like a dazzling star. Although she wore very simple clothes, her natural beauty that couldn't be concealed still attracted the eyes of countless male students. Most of their eyes were infatuated. Of course, this infatuated gaze would turn into jealousy and anger when it turned to Chiyu. As one of the two beauties in the school, this was the first time that Ming walked with a male student in public. Ming, you see, in our Yinhuang Republic, I'm not the only pervert. There's so many people looking at you. While walking, Chiyu couldn't help but tease Ming. Ming snorted disdainfully and said, Don't give me that. That's a look of admiration. What about you? You're naked. Fortunately, your eyes don't have any ability. Otherwise, I really doubt that you could take off someone's clothes with your eyes. Chiyu said with yearning, That's the ability that I'm looking forward to the most. Ming said impatiently, All right, let's go. Didn't you say that it's almost the appointed time? I also want to see what kind of good brother you are. At this moment, Chiyu's heart suddenly trembled. His gaze froze in front of him. Why is he here? Ming followed his gaze and saw a young man walking on the main road from a fork in the road. Beside him were a few beautiful female students who were talking and laughing along the way. This handsome young man was none other than Chiyu's old enemy, Yin Xiaoyi. Ming said in a low voice, I've long discovered that he's also in Qingbei. This guy is from the computer department. How did you offend such a person? His father can be said to have power and influence in the capital. Moreover, he has also practiced martial arts. According to my classmates in the department, he's also a computer genius. Now, There are many female students in the school who view him as a Prince Charming. Chiyu snorted and said, "Isn't this guy just a bit handsome? Haven't you heard that a pretty boy has no good intentions?" Ji Mingming giggled and said, "Someone seems to be jealous." "Oh, right, look at him wearing a hat again. Since the first time I saw him in Qingbei, he seems to have always been like this. In the past, he always wore a hat, and this is a ski hat. Now he's not afraid of the heat." Chiyu said doubtfully, "I've seen this guy twice before. He doesn't wear a hat. Could it be that he was disfigured by me using a brick last time? It can't be. It shouldn't be that serious." Ji Mingming said, "All right, it's better to avoid trouble. If he doesn't provoke you, you also don't provoke him. Right now, your task is to study hard and cultivate well." Chiyu shrugged his shoulders and said with a smile, "Don't be afraid. Now that I have a super bodyguard like you by my side, what do I have to be afraid of? What's more, if it's just him alone, he might not be able to beat me. Have you heard of the brick-breaking martial art?" Ji Mingming covered her mouth and chuckled and said, "Then let's try another day. I want to see such a unique skill of yours." Forget it. I don't have masochistic tendencies." Chiyu had seen Ji Mingming's strength. Although she was not as domineering as Hai Ryue, he could see from how she easily knocked down more than 20 young men last time that she was far from being comparable to him. What's more, Hai Ryue said that Mingming was already at Sanyan. If she used origin mutation, he would be even more incomparable. The two of them left the school one after another with Yin Xiaoi. Yin Xiaoi took a taxi first. Mingming originally wanted to take a taxi, but Chiyu said that he wanted to walk to exercise his body. In the end, the two of them could only rely on their legs to walk to Vol's school. "Chiyu, I heard from Sister Ryue that you encountered Xieji, and that Xieji even ran into your body. Do you feel anything special?" Ji Mingming asked curiously. Chiyu said helplessly, "I don't feel anything. When I attacked Xieji, I suddenly felt my body heat up, and then I lost consciousness. When I woke up, T-Rex told me that 100 days had passed. I found that I can sleep more and more. Could it be that Qilin could sleep like this? It was more than 30 hours on the train, and when I arrived at Ziguru's place, it became more than 30 days. When I finally came back, I slept for another 100 days." Mingming said thoughtfully, "This should be the transformation of the body after waking up. Our Zodiac Guardian also needs to sleep for 49 days after waking up, but it's not as strange as you." Chiyu said, "How long does it take for the Zodiac Guardian to cultivate to the one cloud realm after waking up?" Mingming said, "It's very fast for us to cultivate to the one cloud realm. After all, the Zodiac Guardian has to devote itself to our responsibilities as soon as possible after awakening. It will take about 3 months for it to reach the one cloud realm. At that time, its combat power will be far from that of ordinary people. It has been 3 years since I woke up, and I happen to be at the 3 clouds. It's not that fast, but Sister Ryue is even more exaggerated. It has only been 6 years since she woke up, and she already has the strength of the 5 clouds. You have to know that every time you increase by 1 cloud, the difficulty of cultivation increases exponentially." Chiyu said with some envy, "If only I can also reach the 3 clouds realm, then I won't be a burden to you." Mingming smiled and said, "Don't say that. You will be a great help to us. Don't worry, take your time." Walking with Chiyu, although they didn't touch each other, she felt that the strange energy was stimulating the thundercloud force in her body to accelerate its growth. This feeling was very wonderful. Mingming knew that if she could be with Chiyu like this all the time, then her cultivation speed would almost double. But she was a girl after all, so it was impossible. Chapter 14. Boss. Vol's voice came from the roadside. Chiyu looked towards the direction of the voice and saw Vol sitting at a roadside stall eating. The aroma of the barbecued mutton skewers stimulated Chiyu's taste buds. In the past, he liked to eat mutton skewers by the roadside, drink cold beer, and smoke a few cigarettes. That was definitely the life of an immortal. Vol wiped the grease on his hands. His eyes were full of excitement. Chiyu walked a few steps to Vol and patted his broad shoulder. "Good brother." Between brothers, there is no need to say any words of gratitude. Simple eye contact is enough. Chiyu sat next to Vol picked up Vol's beer, and drank half of it in one breath. Exhilarating. This is exhilarating. Chi put down the bottle. He hasn't felt so good for a long time. When he looked at Vol again, he found that Vol's eyes were fixed on him, and Ji Ming Ming sat opposite to Vol. Chi couldn't help but feel proud. After all, the beauty came with him. Brother, let me introduce you. This is the relative I mentioned, my cousin Ming Ming. You can call her Sister Ming Ming. Vol swallowed his saliva and said with some difficulty, Boss, are you sure she is your cousin? You two don't look alike at all. Listening to Vol's words, Ming Ming couldn't help but laugh. Yes, of course I don't look like him. If I look like him, I'm afraid I won't be able to get married in the future. Hello, Vol. I heard Chi mention you several times. Vol hurriedly said, Hello, Sister Ming Ming. It's the first time I've seen such a beautiful sister like you in my life. Ji Ming Ming smiled and said, Vol really knows how to talk. By the way, this shouldn't be your real name, right? Vol said awkwardly, you can just call me Vol. My real name doesn't sound good. Chi suddenly burst into laughter. Ming Ming asked in surprise, What are you laughing at? What's the name of Vol? Chi chuckled and said, If you have the chance, bribe me, and I will tell you. TSK, whatever. It's fine if you don't want to say it. Although she really wanted to know, when she saw Chi Yu's smug look, she couldn't help but pout. Vol smiled bitterly and said, Sister Ming Ming, don't be angry. I'll be honest. My surname is Tian, and my name is Bo Guang. Ji Ming Ming opened her mouth wide, then covered her mouth with her hand, trying hard not to laugh out loud. Vol said helplessly, Now you know why I can't call you by your real name. I don't like to go to school, and this name is a big reason. It's okay in elementary school, but in middle school, who hasn't read Jean Dasha's books? I'm so depressed. Chi took out a stack of money from his pocket and gave it to Vol, saying, This is 15,000 yuan. I spent some of the money you gave me last time and left some. This is for you first. When I make money in the future, I'll pay you back double. Oh yes, and my phone. Vol was a little angry and said, Boss, what are you doing? You're my brother, don't be like this. Chi said, All right, now that I'm back, I'm not short of money. Didn't you see that I found a rich relative? Vol refused to take it no matter what. After a few more rejections and Chi Yu's insistence, he reluctantly took back the money, but left the phone for Chi Yu to use. Originally, Chi Yu wanted to eat at another place, but Ming Ming said there was no need. She also wanted to try the taste of the roadside stalls. The three of them ordered a bunch of meat skewers, and Chi Yu unscrupulously ordered a few bottles of beer. He had always been a big fan of alcohol. Perhaps it was because of the words of his smoking big brother, who said that if you don't smoke or drink, you're not as good as a dog. Chi Yu had just eaten a few mutton skewers, and he looked across the road and said in a strange tone, Hey, why do I see that guy again? It's really F*** King Hell. Across the road, a man and a woman were walking in their direction. The man was Yin Xiaoi, whom he had seen at the school gate, and the woman was a beauty that Chi Yu had never seen before. However, he suddenly found a problem. When his good brother, Vol, saw the beauty, his eyes froze. It was not a lustful look, but a strange, affectionate light. He completely forgot about the beer he was pouring, and he didn't even notice that a lot of it had spilled. This was the first time that Chi Yu saw Vol with such an expression. Vol, don't tell me that you like the woman with Yin Xiaoi. Chi Yu slapped his good brother hard, and Vol came back to his senses. Boss, that woman is not Yin Xiaoi. She is a teacher at our school. Her name is M.O.D., and she is Yin Xiaoi's cousin. She is 24 years old this year, and she is recognized as the most beautiful woman in our school. I think I am in love with her. Vol's eyes were shining. At this time, he was completely obsessed with her. Chi Yu laughed and said, I say, Rat, how old are you this year? I remember you were 16 or 15. She is 8 or 9 years older than you. Do you think it's realistic? Vol protested. Age is not a gap. When I first saw her, I was unconsciously attracted to her temperament. I don't know why, but every movement of hers is so attractive to me. Boss, you have to help me. This is the first time in my life that I have a crush on someone. Teacher Modi likes to come here often to eat grilled chicken wings. That's why I come here every day to eat, just to see her more. Chi Yu was stunned for a moment. Field Mouse had clearly fallen too deeply. Although Chi Yu liked beauties, he had never known what true love felt like. Looking at his good brother's appearance, he could not help but smile bitterly. How can I help you with this? Don't tell me we should get some drugs and rape her? Chi Yu, watch your mouth. They're already here. Ming Ming said with some dissatisfaction. Sure enough, Yin Xiaoyi and Modi had arrived at the roadside stall. At this time, they finally noticed the existence of Chi Yu and the others. Yin Xiaoyi, who was wearing a ski cap on his head, suddenly changed his face. Good. You are actually here. Although he said it to Chi Yu, his eyes flickered a little as he looked at Ming Ming. Ming Ming had left a deep impression on him that day. Chi Yu snorted coldly and said, Does this place belong to your family? Why can't I be here? Yin Xiaoyi, do you want to know why the flowers are so red? I can satisfy your little desire. As he said, he also squeezed his hand, making a cracking sound. As they got closer, Chi Yu could not help but look at Vol's crush. This woman, named Modi, seemed to be about the same age as Tyrannosaurus Rex Ryue. Like Ming Ming, she also had clean short hair. In terms of appearance, she was not as good as Ming Ming. At most, she was similar to the other two roommates in the girls' dormitory. But she also had her own strange thing, which was her legs. Chi always liked to look at women from the bottom up. When he saw Modi's legs, he could not help but be a little stunned. Generally speaking, the ratio of leg length to height reached the golden ratio of 0. 618 was obviously the most beautiful. But this woman, named Modi, in front of him, from the visual observation, the ratio of her leg length to height was definitely more than 0. 7. That pair of amazing slender legs wore ordinary trousers, but looked so soul-stirring. What made Chi Yu most strange was that her legs were so long, but there was not the slightest sense of incongruity. Her height was similar to Ming Ming, but the feeling of slender legs was even more. She was a very strange beauty. No wonder the vole took a fancy to her. Is it you who hurt my brother's head? Modi's soft eyes fell on Chi Yu, but it seemed a little cold. Chi Yu raised his head and said, Yes, it was me. Modi did not pay any more attention to Chi Yu, looked at Vol, and said, Tian Bo Guang, why are you here again? The school does not allow students to leave school at noon. Don't you know that? Now go back to school immediately. Vol did not look like he was with Chi Yu at all. Instead, he looked like a good student, lowering his head and not saying a word. Chi Yu curled his lips and said, This is not the school. Don't show off your teacher's power. Just as he said this, Vol whispered in his ear, Boss, Teacher Modi teaches us sports. I heard that she is the national champion of Taekwondo. Chi was stunned for a moment. It can't be. Why is it that every woman I meet is more powerful than the last? Does that mean that Teacher Modi wants to avenge your brother? As he spoke, his gaze unconsciously shifted towards Modi's long legs. Modi ignored Chi Yu, still looked at Vol, and said, Tian Bo Guang, please go back to school immediately. Otherwise, I will take you to the academic affairs office. Vol raised his head and looked at Modi blankly, but he shook his head and said, I'm sorry. Teacher Modi, I can't go back now. Chi Yu is my big brother, and I also had a part in beating up Yin Xiaoyi. If you want revenge, then count me in. Although he was only 16 years old this year, Vol obviously attached more importance to his brotherhood than to his crush. Modi's eyes flashed coldly, and he turned to Chi Yu and said, Originally, I didn't want to get involved in the matter between you and Xiao Yi, but do you know how much damage you have done to him? Today, I have to get justice for Xiao Yi. Tian Bo Guang, since you don't want to leave, then you can come with me. As he said this, he turned around and walked out with Yin Xiaoyi. Chi Yu snorted coldly, immediately stood up, backhanded a wine bottle, and followed them out. He never knew what fear was. In the face of Hai Ryue's irresistible attack, he never gave in, let alone Yin Xiaoyi and his brother. Ming Ming helplessly followed behind Chi Yu with Vol. She didn't care about these things. It was her responsibility to protect Chi Yu, not to mention that Chi Yu was now her friend. On both sides of the wide road were tall trees with lush branches and leaves. Under the sunlight, they brought a layer of uneven tree shadows to the mainland. On the left side of the road was the school where Vol was. The tall walls blocked people's view, and they couldn't see what was happening inside. On the right side of the road, there was a slope that went down for more than 3 meters and was full of sparse trees. Modi and Yin Xiaoyi stopped on the right side of the road. Seeing that Chi Yu and the others followed, they walked down the slope. Yin Xiaoyi looked back at Chi Yu with resentment and whispered something to Modi, but Modi didn't say anything, as if he didn't hear it. The 5 people came down the slope. Chi Yu with Vol and Ming Ming stopped 5 meters away from Modi and his brother. He held the beer bottle in his right hand and knocked it on the palm of his left hand. "Tell me, Mr. Modi, how do you want to solve this?" "I, Chi Yu, am here to accompany you to the end." Modi suddenly exuded a cold aura, and even Ming Ming couldn't help but be surprised. She took a step forward and blocked Chi Yu's body. "Chi Yu, your Huqian Boguang classmate beat up Xiaoyi because of a personal grudge. Originally, I wouldn't participate in this kind of thing, but today I want to get justice for Xiaoyi. This should be the young lady that Xiaoyi said beat up more than 20 people last time. From Xiaoyi's evaluation of you, I can feel that you are very strong. How about this? Let's have a fight. If you win, the past will be written off. If I win, Chi Yu will come with me, and I will do whatever I want." Ming Ming smiled and said, "Sister, there is something I have to say in advance. It doesn't matter if we fight, but I can only represent myself, not him. I and Chi Yu are friends, and I can't make decisions for him. Please." Although Chi Yu was a ruffian, he was also Kirin. Even if it was Hai Ruyue, she couldn't ignore Chi Yu's safety. Modi said indifferently, "Then please. If I defeat you, I think no one can stop me from taking him away." The 2 beauties with different styles looked at each other. Chi Yu, Vol, and Yin Xiaoyi respectively retreated in 2 different directions. Ming Ming slowly stretched her arms to the sides of her body, while Modi made a strange posture. He raised his palms in front of him, palms facing outwards, as if he was trying to resist. The 2 stared at each other, and the first to move was still Ming Ming. Ming Ming's body swayed, and in an instant, she closed in on Modi. Her left hand protected her chest, and her right hand swept towards Modi's shoulder. Modi didn't move forward, but retreated instead. The speed at which he retreated was no slower than Ming Ming's forward momentum. Her legs moved in an instant, and her right leg was like a long whip. She was wearing a leather shoe, and the tip of her shoe was pointing at Ming Ming's right wrist. Her judgment of time was not good, and it was as if Ming Ming's hand was sent up for her to kick. Ming Ming was obviously not so easy to deal with. Her right arm stopped for a moment, and her right shoulder was pulled back, and the edge of her palm was raised, and it instantly collided with the tip of Modi's shoe. With a muffled bang, Ming Ming and Modi's bodies swayed at the same time. The 2 women's eyes revealed a trace of surprise. The next moment, Modi had already risen into the air, and her legs were like illusions, crisscrossing and kicking towards Ming Ming. Her movements were so fast that Chi Yu couldn't tell how many kicks she had kicked in an instant. Ming Ming's hands were not slower than Modi's. Her feet stood in the same place without retreating. She retracted her hands and used her arms to block Modi's attack. For a moment, a low sound of collision was heard. Chi Yu could clearly feel the airflow blowing towards him, and he couldn't help but be secretly surprised. The attack between them was obviously not as simple as ordinary punches and kicks. He didn't expect that Yin Xiaoyi had such a powerful cousin. She really deserved to be the national champion of Taekwondo. The movements of the 2 women were getting faster and faster. Gradually, only 2 figures could be seen flying. Suddenly, Modi's kick missed, and it happened to hit a tree with the thickness of the mouth of a bull. What made Chi Yu and Vol dumbfounded was that in the clear sound, the upper part of the tree flew out horizontally. The fracture was unusually neat, and it looked like it was cut in an instant by a knife. Oh my God, if such a leg was kicked on a person, what would happen? Chi Yu had a burst of fear in his heart. It turned out that martial arts could really be so strong. Ming Ming could actually use her arms to block such an attack. Was her arms made of iron? With a muffled bang, the 2 women's lightning-fast figures quickly separated to the sides. Ming Ming's face had a touch of redness, and her arms were still stretched out horizontally. Looking at Modi's legs, Her eyes could not help but show a trace of admiration. Modi also looked at Ming Ming in amazement. In the beginning, her attack was only tentative, and she only used 30% of her strength. But as the battle between the two became more and more intense, she almost used all her strength in the end, but her fast legs still couldn't break through Ming Ming's solid defense. This was the first time that Modi encountered such a situation. There's an old saying, no matter how thick an arm is, it can't beat a thigh. But in this situation, it was obvious that Ming Ming's arms had blocked her super leg attack. "You are very strong, but you have to be careful next," Modi said calmly. She had already lifted her right leg, bent her knee, and the tip of her foot was no longer as straight as before. Instead, she faced her shoe outwards, making a feint. Her eyes obviously lit up. Her long legs were her sharpest weapons. Ming Ming suddenly froze for a moment and looked at Modi with a strange gaze. This is the leading star kick, also known as the rabbit kicking the eagle. Compared to your previous razor kick, this should be weaker. Modi smiled indifferently and said, "The rabbit can fight with the eagle. The weak are used to defeating the strong. This kick is not the other kick. Miss, just be careful." A layer of faint airflow began to revolve around Modi's body. The soil on the ground actually rolled along with it, and an invisible killing intent spread out. Modi was like an unsheathed longsword, looking for a flaw in Ming Ming's body. Ming Ming's expression was solemn. Her arms drew an arc in front of her body, and the light in her eyes became sharp. Her upper body slightly leaned forward, and her arms first gently shook and then immediately straightened. You also have to be careful. This is the iron wing feather blade technique. The wings are like the edge of a blade, and it specializes in breaking through defense. Looking at the two women who were about to launch an all-out attack, Qiyu suddenly felt his blood boil. He stared at Yin Xiaoi, who was not far away, and said, "Soldiers against soldiers, generals against generals. Haven't you always wanted to find me for revenge? Then come. I don't have a brick today, so I'll let you see my skill with a beer bottle." As he said that, Qiyu swung the beer bottle in his hand and smashed it on the big tree next to him. With a crisp sound, the bottom of the bottle broke, and glass was immediately revealed. In an ordinary fight, a beer bottle was one of the sharpest weapons. Yin Xiaoi was not afraid at all. With a cold snort, he took a big step towards Qiyu. Vol was just about to come over, but was stopped by Qiyu's eyes. "This is between me and him." Just as Yin Xiaoi and Qiyu rushed towards each other, Ming Ming and Modi also launched their attacks at the same time. Modi jumped on the spot, and his body made a beautiful turn in the air. His previously raised right foot suddenly kicked out, and an invisible airflow came out from his foot and unexpectedly kicked towards Ming Ming. Fortunately, the attack that she kicked out was invisible or would be enough to shock the world. It should be known that in this era, most of the internal martial arts have been lost. To be able to transform the internal qi into external qi to attack the enemy, it was not something that could be achieved by hard training. It required one's own extremely high talent, and with acquired hard work and the guidance of a famous teacher, it was possible to succeed. This attack method of releasing the internal qi was much more dangerous than the previous one. Ming Ming didn't dodge. His arms, which were stretched out to both sides, were raised slightly. Then, he instantly slashed in front of him. Similarly, an invisible air current surged out, and the air let out an ear-piercing, tearing sound. Modi's face turned pale, and he took a step back. Meanwhile, Ming Ming's body swayed, and he only managed to stabilize himself after taking 2 steps back. At this time, Yin Xiaoi and Qiyu's attention were on each other. When the two women were fighting, they also faced each other. This time, Yin Xiaoi had a good memory. When he was 3 meters away from Qiyu, he had already jumped up, and a fierce roundhouse kick was aimed at Qiyu's head. After all, he had practiced for a few years, and his basic skills were still very good. The first time he was beaten by Qiyu, it was only because of the lack of experience. However, at this time, Qiyu was not the previous Qiyu. In his eyes, Yin Xiaoi's attack was not fast, and his forward momentum did not stop at all. Just when Yin Xiaoi's roundhouse kick was about to hit him, he had already closed in on his body. In a roundhouse kick, the leg was obviously the most powerful part, but when Yin Xiaoyi kicked Qiyu, it was only his calf, and the strength was relatively much less. Qiyu's calculation was also a little wrong. The strength of Yin Xiaoyi's leg was obviously a little stronger than he thought. His body shook, and he was suddenly kicked a few steps to the side, and the wine bottle that was originally aimed at Yin Xiaoyi suddenly fell into the air. Modi and Ming Ming did not look at the fight between the two, and looked at each other. At their level, the difference in strength was very small. Even if it was just a moment of negligence, it was possible for the other party to take advantage of the flaw. Modi's eyes were full of splendor. Give up. After all, you are younger than me, and you are still a little lacking. To be able to reach this level of martial arts is already very rare. I don't want to hurt you. Ming Ming smiled. I don't want to hurt you even more. To be able to use internal qi to launch an attack with Kuei Xing's kick, I am afraid there are only a few people in this world who can do it. In fact, when I saw your long legs, I already had some doubts in my heart. It is destined that we should not be enemies. Modi looked at Ming Ming with some surprise. She did not understand what Ming Ming meant. Suddenly, her expression changed slightly, and she lifted the tip of her foot and instantly kicked to the side. The sound of the wind broke through the air. The blade of the foot was invisible, and its target was Qiyu. It turned out that during the simple conversation between Modi and Ming Ming, Qiyu had already gained the upper hand in the fight against Yin Xiaoyi. In terms of strength, although Qiyu had rich fighting experience, he was still not as good as Yin Xiaoyi of the Martial Arts University. However, he was now not only a ruffian, but also the heir of Kirin's bloodline. When Yin Xiaoyi attacked Qiyu for the second time, Qiyu used his hands to block Yin Xiaoyi's attack. This time, Yin Xiaoyi suddenly felt that his legs were instantly numb, and at the same time, a scorching heat appeared in the crook of his leg, causing him to scream in pain. At this time, Qiyu kicked his supporting leg and immediately put him down on the ground. He raised the broken bottle in his hand and wanted to stab Yin Xiaoyi. Unfortunately, now Yin Xiaoyi was not alone. Cousin Modi was next to him. With a bang, Qiyu only felt a strong force coming, and the bottle in his hand had turned into powder. However, the huge force did not show any signs of weakening and went straight to his chest. At the critical moment, Qiyu sucked in his chest and abdomen and shouted, "Come." The four-colored light on his chest flashed slightly, and before the invisible attack reached his chest, it instantly condensed into one, blocking the attack of the airflow. Despite this, under the huge impact, Qiyu's body took 7 or 8 steps in succession, and he sat on the ground. What a terrifying leg strength. It was important to know that Modi was still 7 or 8 meters away from him at this time. Fortunately, Qiyu had learned a few energy-dispelling techniques from Uncle Zhou after waking up. In addition, he had comprehended the 4-attribute return to 1 technique when facing the Xie, which allowed him to unleash a certain amount of energy, so he was not seriously injured. Ming Ming's face changed, and she stood in front of Modi. "Stop," I said, "we are not enemies." Modi said coldly, "You and I aren't enemies to begin with, but he's different. Xiaoyi is my uncle's only son, but because he was beaten by Qiyu last time, he suffered from a terminal illness. Even if my uncle can't take revenge according to the law, I will seek justice for Xiaoyi." After listening to Modi's words, Ming Ming couldn't help but be stunned. Even Qiyu and Vol were stunned at the same time. The conflict between Qiyu and Yin Xiaoyi was actually because of a woman. Although he hated Yin Xiaoyi very much, Qiyu never wanted to kill him. "Teacher Modi, you need evidence to speak. Last time, I just hit him twice with a brick. At most, it was a concussion. He is still here. How can you say that he has a terminal illness? Don't frame me, or I will sue you for slander." Modi looked at Qiyu coldly. "As a teacher, I will never lie. If it wasn't because of this, do you think I would be willing to care about your fight? Xiaoyi, let him understand." Yin Xiaoyi's eyes were filled with grief and indignation. He gritted his teeth and yanked off the hat on his head. F***CK. Qiyu stared at Yin Xiaoyi, dumbfounded. He couldn't believe his eyes. Although he didn't want to admit it, Yin Xiaoyi was indeed much more handsome than him. However, the current Yin Xiaoyi was full of strangeness. His black hair had turned white. Although it was trimmed very short, the layer of white was exceptionally clear. What was even stranger was that there were two more protrusions about an inch tall on his forehead. They looked like two horns, and the two horns and white hair completely destroyed his handsomeness. At this moment, Chiyu understood why Yin Xiaoyi looked at him with such hatred. I didn't hit him with a brick, did I? Do I have such a strong ability? Chiyu looked at Yin Xiaoyi and really didn't know what to say. Yin Xiaoyi said angrily, "If you didn't hit me, do you think I had it before? After you hit me last time, I recuperated in the hospital for a whole month. During that month, my hair quickly turned white, and I also grew these two protrusions. If it wasn't you, who could it be? Am I still a human now? My father used countless connections to find the best doctor in the capital to examine me, but he couldn't find anything. The two protrusions can't even be cut off. They're actually connected to my cranial nerves. If they're cut off, I will immediately die. Do you think I want to wear a hat every day? How can I meet people like this?" Modi said coldly, "You all saw it? Chiyu, I don't care how you did it. If you don't give me a reasonable explanation today, don't even think about leaving here." Chiyu was dumbfounded. "How would I know what's going on? Explain my ass." Modi was furious. Just as she was about to hit him, she suddenly heard Ming Ming's bell-like laughter. She immediately glared at her and said, "What are you laughing at? My cousin has become like this. Are you still making fun of him?" Ming Ming laughed beautifully. She was a stunning beauty. When she laughed, she couldn't help but make the three men present a little stunned. "Sister Modi, don't be angry. I naturally have a reason to laugh. In fact, I should congratulate you. It's rare to have two zodiac signs in the past." Modi and Yin Xiaoyi didn't understand what she meant, but how could Chiyu not? He opened his mouth and said, "No way. Ming Ming, are you wrong?" Ming Ming smiled and shook her head. "How can I be wrong? Yin Xiaoyi's current appearance is clearly in the early stage of the awakening of the zodiac blood. I have experienced this kind of thing before. Sister Modi, don't worry. We will help Yin Xiaoyi solve the problem, and we will do it immediately." Modi was a little puzzled and said, "What do you mean? Why don't I understand?" Ming Ming said seriously, "In our Yinwang Republic, there are some special people. They are warriors who protect the East. Among these special people, the leader is called the Zodiac Guardian. They represent the ability of the Zodiac. This is a secret in the circle of guardians, but there are no outsiders here, so I am not afraid to tell you. Vol is Chi Yu's good brother. I believe he won't tell others. I know it's hard for you to believe my words, but I will prove it to you with facts. Yin Xiaoyi is nothing. The Zodiac Guardian, the chicken, is a mutation of the Zodiac." Chapter 15. Ming Ming's short black hair had turned into long, five-colored hair, extending all the way to her buttocks. Sparkling feathers glittered with five-colored light appeared on every part of her body. The center of her long hair was red, and above her forehead there were three strands of red hair that were tangled together. Her arms had disappeared, and two five-colored wings that were 1.5 meters long appeared out of thin air. The five-colored feathers in front of her spread out neatly, like a gorgeous armor. A colorless light shield that could not be seen behind appeared out of thin air on Ming Ming's face. From her waist, five-colored feathers that were 2 meters long extended behind her, covering the ground behind her. A loud rooster's cry rang out, and everyone present clearly felt their spirits lift. I'm the Zodiac warrior that represents the zodiac sign of the chicken among the Zodiac guardian gods. If my guess is correct, Sister Modi, your zodiac sign should be that of the rabbit, and Yin Xiaoyi's zodiac sign is that of the sheep. Am I right? A faint five-colored halo circulated around Ming Ming's body. She looked like a beautiful phoenix, gently flapping her wings. At the edge of her wings, there was a layer of metallic luster. Sister Modi, before I use my zodiac sign, my strength is indeed inferior to yours. However, after I use my zodiac sign, you are far from being my match." As she spoke, she gently waved her right wing, and a five-colored light floated out. It gracefully traversed the distance of 50 meters and landed on a big tree. The tree shook slightly, and with a loud bang, the top half of the tree fell to the ground. An attack of 50 meters in the air was not something that could be achieved with inner chi. Yin Xiaoyi exclaimed, "Do you mean that my cousin and I are the same as you? We're also the guardian of the Zodiac?" Multicolored light flashed, and Ming Ming's body was once again enveloped by the light. Like a whirlwind, it swept up the clothes that had fallen to the ground. When the light disappeared, she once again appeared in front of everyone, restoring the appearance of a young and beautiful girl. "That's right. You and Big Sister Modi should be part of the Zodiac guardian deities. The horns and white hair on your head are the symbols of sheep. Big Sister Modi's extraordinary leg strength, as well as the ability of the kick formula, are far from what ordinary people can compare with. Only the rabbit of the Zodiac guardian deities has this special ability. Of course, this is only my guess. I need to verify it before I know if you're really the Zodiac guardian gods. If you are, then you can blame Chiyu." He hit Yin Xiaoyi with the brick, and his own breath entered Yin Xiaoyi's body, which prompted the early awakening of the Zodiac sheep bloodline in his body. Looking at Yin Xiaoyi, Chiyu couldn't help but feel a little helpless. This guy, who used to be his enemy, had unexpectedly become his Zodiac companion. This change was too big. Yin Xiaoyi said anxiously, "Then how can we verify whether we are the real Zodiac guardian gods? If we are, can the horns and white hair on my head return to normal?" Ming Ming smiled and said, "Of course you can. However, whether it is to verify your identity or help you return to normal, I can't do it. Only the king of the 12 zodiacs can help you." As she spoke, she looked at Chiyu with a smile. Yin Xiaoyi's handsome face was a little twisted. "You're not telling me that this ruffian is the king of the Zodiac guardian gods, are you?" Ming Ming said helplessly, "When I first saw this guy, I also found it hard to believe, but it turns out that he is indeed the king of the Zodiac guardian gods, the King Kirin." At this time, Chiyu had already recovered from the previous shock. He said angrily, "Yin Xiaoyi, do you think I want to take you as a brother? You want to steal my woman? I can't wait to kill you. However, since Ming Ming said that you might be the Zodiac sheep, we really need to improve our relationship. You can follow me from now on." Yin Xiaoyi said angrily, "Follow you? Who do you think you are?" His resentment towards Chiyu would not disappear so easily. A cold light flashed in Chiyu's eyes, and he said like a hooligan, "It's up to you. If you want to live with 2 horns and a head of white hair for the rest of your life, I have nothing to say. Ming Ming, Vol, let's go." "Wait a minute." Seeing that Chiyu was about to leave, Modi hurriedly stopped them. After seeing Ming Ming's original form alienation ability, Modi knew that it was impossible to threaten Chiyu with force. The title of the Zodiac guardian god made her have a very strange feeling in her heart, and she even had a little desire for it. More importantly, if what Ming Ming said was true, then if Yin Xiaoyi wanted to change back to his previous appearance, he really had to rely on this little ruffian in front of him. As the saying goes, people under the eaves have to bow their heads. Compared with Yin Xiaoyi, she was much more rational. Chiyu turned around and said with a smile, "Beautiful teacher, is there anything else?" Modi took a deep breath and said, "There's no real hatred between you and Little E. It's just jealousy over a woman. Little E has nothing to do with that woman now. Since we can become partners, I want to ask you to help him. These days, the white hair and horns on his head have brought too much pain to Little E." Chiyu glanced at Yin Xiaoyi, but Yin Xiaoyi turned his head away, unwilling to look at him. However, he did not say anything, and looked at Modi and said, "Okay, I promise you." Modi did not expect Chiyu to be so straightforward. "Thank you." Chiyu shook his head and said, "You don't need to thank me. If you want to thank someone, thank my brother Vol. You are his teacher, and for the sake of my brother, I can't not agree. Moreover, you're right, there's no real hatred between me and Yin Xiaoyi. This is indeed a good solution. In the future, I hope that Teacher Modi will take care of my brother Vol." Vol looked at Chiyu gratefully, and Chiyu's hand gently squeezed his shoulder. Modi said, "Okay, I promise you. I will take care of Tian Bo Guang in the future. Can we start now?" Chiyu did not intend to leave, and Ming Ming had been signaling him with her eyes. It was not easy to find a Zodiac guardian god. How could he give up so easily? The 3 turned back and walked in front of Modi and Yin Xiaoyi. Chiyu looked at the two protrusions on Yin Xiaoi's head and could not help but smile. I want to check whether you are the real Zodiac guardian god. If you are, I only need to trigger the Zodiac sheep bloodline in Yin Xiaoi's body and make the traces of his awakening disappear. When the bloodline is really awakened, this attribute mutation ability can be controlled by himself. However, when I check and help him trigger the bloodline, a person's mood is very important. If either of us is in a bad mood, I'm afraid it will cause some adverse effects. Chiyu did not have Kirin's ability yet, but he had learned the ascending Qilin skill. Among Kirin's skills, there were several that could be used without practicing, including triggering the Zodiac bloodline and identifying the Zodiac guardian god bloodline. Because Kirin's power was in the initial stage, he had to wait for a year for Kirin's bloodline to fully integrate with his body. At that time, Chi would have the ability to detect the existence of the Zodiac guardian god within a certain range, as Zagru said. Therefore, when he saw Yin Xiaoi and Modi, he would not feel anything. He had to go through a special ceremony and be close to them to detect whether they were the real Zodiac guardian gods. As for the mood that Chiyu said, it was just a fabrication. Yin Xiaoi snorted coldly and said, "What adverse effects can there be?" Chiyu said seriously, "Every Zodiac guardian god's ability is different, and it is closely related to the Zodiac he inherited. As for the sheep, if I remember correctly, if the bloodline is triggered well, the sheep will have the ability of Yang. In other words, when you do bed exercises, you can last longer. If the effect is not good, then it's hard to say. Generally speaking, the possibility of impotence is higher. But I guess you don't care about this. Let's try it directly. Maybe it will have a good effect." Yin Xiaoi was shocked and hurriedly said, Don't try it first." He hurriedly took a few deep breaths, and the anger on his face gradually calmed down. Although he still looked at Chiyu with a complicated gaze, the hatred had disappeared. He forced a smile and said, "I'm in a much better mood now. I should be able to start." Chiyu shrugged and said, "Your mood is not too important. As the king of the Zodiac, my mood is more important. Just now, you called me a thing, and I don't know who I am. But I can tell you that my mood is not very good. Come on, let's start." As a former hooligan, when it came to making jokes, Tin Yin Xiaoi would not be a match for Chiyu. Chiyu had long known Yin Xiaoi's character. He was arrogant, confident in his appearance and identity, and had a strong attraction to women. Perhaps Yin Xiaoi did not care about other things because of his face, but it was related to the most important thing of a man. Yin Xiaoi, who had always been popular with women, could not ignore it. Any man would not want to be impotent. "Wait a minute." Yin Xiaoi was a little embarrassed and said, "Then, what do you want to do to make your mood better?" Chiyu crossed his arms in front of him and said with a smile, "It's very simple. If you recognize me as your boss, my mood should be better. After all, I have to do my best to help my brother." "Recognize you as my boss?" The anger in Yin Xiaoi's eyes rose again. Chiyu said indifferently, "Up to you. I promised your sister that I would help you awaken your bloodline, so I will definitely do it. Whether you recognize me as your boss or not is up to you. As for that man's ability, I don't think you need it." As he said so, his heart was blooming with joy. He had played a trick on Yin Xiaoi this time, and he would have his revenge. Yin Xiaoi hesitated and said, "Are there any conditions for me to recognize you as my boss?" Chiyu said, "It's very simple. In the future, whenever I like a woman, don't fight with me over her. This condition is not difficult, right?" When Chiyu just arrived at Qingbei University, he had already met a few beauties, and every one of them made him drool. Yin Xiaoi had always been popular with beauties, and he was in the same university as him. Getting rid of this love rival first would naturally be more beneficial to his university life for the next 4 years. Yin Xiaoi was obviously relieved and said, "This is simple. There are so many beauties in the world. Why would I fight with you over them? I was just playing with that Nana last time. Okay, then I'll recognize you as my boss." As he said that, he took a step back and helplessly called him boss. Chiyu said with satisfaction, "Okay, you have to remember in the future, once a boss, always a boss. As long as you are a good little brother, your big brother, I, will not treat you badly." Yin Xiaoi nodded helplessly, but he mumbled, "It seems like I'm older than you." Yu could be said to be complacent now, and he ignored Yin Xiaoi's mumbling. Okay, then let's begin. This is my first time using Kieran's identification art. As he said that, Yu slowly closed his eyes. The moment he closed his eyes, the other four people suddenly had a strange feeling. Yu, who was previously a ruffian, suddenly emitted an invisible layer of majesty. Although his eyes were closed, his body seemed unusually tall. With Kieran's blood as a guide, I summon you in the name of Kieran. Warriors of the 12 Zodiac that guard the east, show me your Zodiac signs. Yu raised his right hand, bit his middle finger, and flicked in the air. A drop of blood floated out. Yu made a strange hand gesture, and the drop of blood suddenly floated away. A layer of faint red light spread out in a circle, enveloping a radius of 10 meters. The first to react was Ming Ming. When the blood light enveloped her body, a faint five-colored shadow appeared behind her, condensing into the shape of a five-colored golden pheasant. Although the shadow was very faint, it was still clearly distinguishable. The second to react was Yin Xiaoi. The shadow that appeared behind him was white, with two long gray horns and a body full of short white fur. It indeed looked like a sheep. Immediately after the shadow behind Yin Xiaoi appeared, a layer of faint white light also appeared behind Modi. The first thing that appeared in the white light were two red dots. The red light was as dazzling as rubies, and an unusually cute snow-white rabbit appeared from the illusion. Its two front paws were folded in front of its body, looking very lifelike. Compared to the shadow behind Yin Xiaoi, this rabbit was clearly much clearer. One could even see the texture of its fur. Ming Ming was overjoyed. That's great. You really are the guardian gods of the Zodiac. Sister Modi's rabbit Zodiac bloodline is innately awakened. No wonder her leg strength is so strong. The awakening of the Zodiac was divided into two types, innately and acquired. The innately awakened ones were born with some of the special abilities of the guardian gods of the Zodiac, like Modi, Ming Ming, and Tyrannosaurus Rex Ryue. However, Yu and Yin Xiaoi belong to the category of acquired awakenings. Acquired awakenings required the help of Heaven's Guide or the King of the Zodiac. Acquired awakenings could only comprehend their own Zodiac skills after awakening. But after awakening, before reaching 5 clouds, the speed of improvement was faster than the innately awakened ones. Therefore, no matter if it was innately awakened or acquired awakenings, after reaching 5 clouds, their strength was almost the same. Of course, exceptions were special cases like Hai Ryue, who had a certain Western bloodline. Yu inherited Kieran's bloodline, but because it was difficult to cultivate, it was not counted. Just when everyone thought that the Zodiac identification ceremony was over, another shadow appeared. This shadow was gray, and in the shadow, a huge rat loomed. Although it was a little blurrier than the shadow behind Yin Xiaoi, the appearance of this shadow still made Yu and Ming Ming stunned at the same time. Because this gray shadow appeared behind Vol. Ming Ming cried out involuntarily, "No way. Yu, you are too lucky. Your bloodline has not been completely integrated yet, but you actually found 3 guardian gods of the Zodiac." The field mouse said blankly, Me too?" Ming Ming smiled and said, "Of course, you are the rat Zodiac of the 12 Zodiac guardians of this generation. It seems that your nickname, Vol, is really right." Yu laughed and said, "Good character. This is good character. Good character can't be helped. Vol, it seems that we brothers will never be separated in the future." "Well, boss, can you get rid of my horn and white hair now?" Yin Xiaoi was a little impatient. He was not interested in the Zodiac guardian gods, but he was worried about his horn and white hair. Yu pointed his right hand forward, and his index finger pressed on Yin Xiaoi's eyebrows. Kieran Guide, Zodiac Return. A faint black and silver light flashed and disappeared. Yin Xiaoi only felt his body tremble slightly, and a cool air flowed from his eyebrows into his body, and his whole body felt indescribably comfortable. He could not see it, but Modi, Ming Ming, and Vol saw it clearly. Yin Xiaoi's hair roots quickly turned black and gradually swallowed the white hair. A short black hair replaced the original white hair, and the two bumps on his forehead gradually became flat. "It's so itchy." Yin Xiaoyi touched his forehead subconsciously, and when he found that his forehead had returned to flat, he could not help but be overjoyed. "It's gone, it's really gone." "That's great, boss. Thank you," Chiyu said proudly. "How is it? You didn't call me boss for nothing, did you? In the future, follow your boss, and I guarantee that you'll have a good life." Ji Ming said, "Although the signs of your initial awakening have been guided by Chiyu's Kirin aura, it has not really awakened. Now, Chiyu does not have the ability to help the Zodiac guardian warriors awaken. When this summer, I will take you to Tibet and ask Master Zagru to help you awaken. After that, our camp will really have 3 more Zodiac guardian warriors." The original contradiction disappeared in the strange appearance of the Zodiac guardian god. Ji Mingming told the story of the Zodiac guardian god to the 3 Zodiac guardian god warriors. Chi was also happy to be free. He sat under a big tree and dozed off. The grievances between him and Yin Xiaoyi had been resolved. It was always better to have one more friend than one more enemy. After an unknown amount of time, when Chiyu's consciousness had gradually sunk into sleep, a sudden pain in his head woke him up. F***CKme, who hit my head? Don't you know that you can't touch Kirin's head? I was dreaming of a critical moment with a beautiful woman. Looking at Ming Ming's snickering face, he stood up helplessly. "Where's Vol? Where's Teacher Modi?" Ming Ming said grumpily. "You can really sleep anywhere. Vol and Sister Modi have gone back to school. Let's go, we should go back. Xiao, he has classes in the afternoon." Chiyu glanced at Yin Xiaoyi, who had regained his high spirits, and said sourly, "We just met for a few minutes, and you already call him Xiao Yi." Ming Ming snorted and said, "We Zodiac Guardian God warriors are the best of brothers and sisters. What's wrong with me calling him by his name?" Yin Xiaoyi was obviously in a good mood after solving the problem on his head. He walked to Chiyu and said in a low voice, "Boss, don't worry. I promised you that I won't flirt with any woman you like." Chiyu glanced at Yin Xiaoyi. His eyes were clearly saying, "At least you know what's good for you, kid." The 3 of them returned to the main road and took a taxi to Qingbei University. When they returned to the gate of Qingbei University, Ming Ming saw an off-road vehicle with a military plate in front of the school gate. She suddenly said with some excitement, "Hey, why is he here?" Saying that, she was the first to jump out of the car. Yin Xiaoyi also got out of the car. Just when Chiyu was about to get out of the car, he heard the voice of the taxi driver. "Sir, you haven't paid yet." What the hell? Why am I always the one getting hurt? Chiyu cursed in his heart. Fortunately, the taxi didn't cost much money. In front of Ming Ming, he had to show some grace. Thus, he could only helplessly pay the taxi fare and get out of the car. When he got out of the car, he saw a burly man jump out of the car with a military plate in front of the school gate. Although Chiyu thought that he was tall, he couldn't help feeling inferior when he saw this burly man. The burly man was 2 meters tall with broad shoulders and a broad back. He didn't look bloated when he wore a neat camouflage uniform. His firm muscles completely balanced the camouflage uniform. Just by standing there, he could already give people a lot of pressure. Ming Ming excitedly ran in front of the burly man and held his hand to say something. Chiyu just got out of the car and needed to cross the road to get to them. Although he already thought that he treated Ming Ming as a good brother, when he saw her holding another man's hand, he still felt a little uncomfortable in his heart. He thought to himself, could this big guy be Ming Ming's boyfriend? It turned out that she clearly liked this type of macho man. It's over, I don't have a chance. As he thought about it, he looked at his inconspicuous muscles, and the jealousy in his heart grew stronger. Just crossing the road, Chiyu heard the burly man say in an extremely loud voice, "Ming Ming, I miss you too. You see, I just came back and heard that you're going to school here. Didn't I come to find you?" Chiyu curled his lips and walked to stand beside Ming Ming. He squinted at the burly man a few times. The burly man in camouflage uniform had a dignified appearance. His dark and resolute face made him look imposing. The hooligan habits that had been cultivated for many years made Chiyu feel a little angry. "Hey, who are you? What are you thinking about? Is my Ming Ming someone you can think of casually?" The burly man was obviously stunned for a moment. His gaze was a little strange. He lowered his head and looked at Chiyu, who was a head shorter than him. Then who are you? Chiyu snorted, puffed out his chest, and said, Listen carefully, I'm the super and invincible handsome Chiyu that everyone is afraid of. More importantly, I'm Ming Ming's boyfriend. The burly man furrowed his brows, and the aura on his body intensified. His sharp gaze caused Chiyu to feel a little guilty. Yin Xiaoyi, who was standing to the side, saw that the situation wasn't looking good and hurriedly said, Everyone, I still have class. I'll be going now, you guys continue chatting. After saying that, he immediately used the great art of slipping away, turned around, and ran. His movement was so fast that Chiyu even suspected that he should be the Zodiac rabbit. Ming Ming giggled and said, All right, don't pretend here. Chiyu, let me introduce you. This is my brother. His name is Jida. What good deeds? I'm doing good deeds? I know Tang Jida. What did you just say? He is your brother? Chiyu finally reacted and couldn't help but widen his eyes. No matter how he looked, he couldn't see any similarities between the tall and strong Jida and Ming Ming. Jida's eyes were unfriendly as he said, You're the first guy who dares to joke about my name. Fine, you have the guts. Chiyu coughed a little awkwardly and said, Hello, big brother. I didn't know you were Ming Ming's brother. I'm really sorry. Jida sneered and said, Aren't you called Xingshan? There's no need to be embarrassed. As he said that, he extended his hand to Chiyu and made a shaking gesture. Big brother, don't be polite with me. We're all on the same side. There's no need to shake hands. What a joke. Chiyu had read a lot of novels, and he had heard of this kind of handshake many times. Jida's big hands were like a fan. He didn't doubt that those small, hammer-like fingers could easily crush his bones. Jida snorted and obviously didn't want to lower himself to Chiyu's level. He turned to Ming Ming and said, Baby Ming Ming, is this guy really your boyfriend? When you were young, I said that whoever wants to marry my sister must first beat me. Only then can he prove that he has the ability to protect my sister. Look at him. Can he do it? Chiyu said angrily. A man can't say he can't. When Jida's eyes fell on him, he hurriedly added, But he can say he doesn't want it. Ji Ming Ming smiled and said, Big brother, don't mind him. This guy's always like this. Are you going to leave after coming back from the army? Only then did Chiyu notice that Jida, who looked to be 27 or 28 years old, had 2 bars and 1 star on his shoulder. He was actually a major. Jida was much more polite to his sister. I won't be leaving this time. Dad said that he recently organized a special force and asked me to come back to join. Little sister, do you have classes in the afternoon? If you don't, come home with me. Our family can have a reunion. I'm going to report in 2 days. Ming Ming smiled and said, Okay, brother, it's not easy for you to come back. Let's go back together. We haven't had a family reunion like this for several years. Oh, by the way, I still have to bring someone back. Jida was stunned for a moment and pointed to Chiyu. It can't be him, right? Ming Ming, I don't want to criticize you, but you know what kind of temper Dad has. Do you think Dad will like someone like him? Ji Ming Ming blushed and said, Brother, it's not what you think. Chiyu and I are just ordinary friends. I have a special reason to bring him back. The brother and sister were talking and didn't notice that Chiyu's face changed slightly after hearing Jida's words. Jida said, Well, it's up to you. Anyway, you can explain it to Dad and Mom when you go back. Little sister, this is the first time you've brought a man home. After saying that, he opened the car door and sat down. Chiyu glanced at Ming Ming and said, Go back with your brother. I won't be in any danger by myself in school. He tried to make his tone as calm as possible, not allowing his emotions to be exposed. Ming Ming whispered, How can I do that? Sister Ryue has repeatedly told me to look after you. You also know that Kirin's first year of awakening is the most dangerous period. At this time, you still don't have the ability to find the other Zodiac guardian gods. When you and Kirin's bloodline fuse next year, it will be much better to gather all the 12 Zodiac guardian gods. Let's go. My house is not a dragon's pool or a tiger's den. Are you afraid? Chi was angry and said, I'll go. Cowards are afraid. After saying that, he opened the back door and got on Jida's off-road vehicle. Ming Ming smiled and thought to herself, It's better to provoke than to invite. Let's see if you still won't go with me. While thinking, she got on the passenger seat and sat side by side with her brother. With a low roar, the off-road vehicle started instantly. The sudden push made Chi-Yu jump, and he quickly grabbed the handrail on the edge of the roof to stabilize his body. Jita looked at Chi-Yu from the rearview mirror and showed a trace of disdain. At this time, Chi-Yu also raised his head, and his eyes immediately caught the trace of disdain. Chapter 16. Jita smiled and said, "That's because the senior officers love me. Little sister, why are you saying this in front of outsiders?" Chi-Yu thought to himself, "What do you mean by lacking something? It's clearly immoral." Jita drove very fast and was extremely skilled. Although the speed was fast, it was very stable and did not give people a feeling of fear. In this regard, it was obvious that he was much better than Tyrannosaurus Rex and Ryue. The off-road vehicle drove smoothly. Along the way, Ming Ming and Jita talked and laughed. Chi-Yu sat in the spacious back seat and did not say a word. He increasingly realized that if a person did not have the ability, he would indeed be looked down upon. If he wanted others to look up to him, he had to keep working hard. After driving for about 40 minutes, Jita stopped in front of a residential area. At the entrance of the residential area, there were 2 soldiers with loaded guns standing guard. They took a look at Jita's license plate and let him in. At this moment, even if Chi-Yu was stupid, he knew that Ming Ming should have grown up in a military family. The residential area looked very simple. There were a total of 4 or 5 buildings, each of which was 18 floors. It was a very standard building. Although the residential area was not considered luxurious, the greenery was very good. Almost 70% of the area was green. Jita found a parking space by the road and parked the car. The 3 of them got out of the car. Ming Ming was still maintaining her excitement. She pulled Chi-Yu and said, "Look, this is my home." Jita looked at his sister pulling Chi-Yu's sleeve and frowned. He said, "Let's go. Let's hurry up." As he spoke, he walked to the door closest to the car and quickly pressed dozens of numbers. The door opened with a click. As soon as they entered the building, Chi-Yu felt that there was something strange here. However, when he looked carefully, he could not find what was strange. The 3 of them took the elevator to the 11th floor. When they got out of the elevator, Chi-Yu found that there was only one door on this floor. There were 3 words stamped in gold on the door. On the right side of the door was another password area. Jita pressed a few keys, and the door opened naturally. Ming Ming smiled and said, "Please, Chi-Yu, you're a rare guest in my house." Walking through the door, Chi-Yu was shocked. It was a 50-square-meter hall. The floor was covered with black and white marble, and there was a 50-inch TV on one of the walls. Black sofas were arranged in 2 semicircles, giving off a gloomy vibe. What a big house. It seemed like this floor belonged to Ming Ming's family. "Oh, who's back?" A deep and magnetic voice sounded, and an old man about 1.8 meters tall walked out from the aisle at the side of the hall. The old man looked to be in his 60s, and his face was ruddy. He wore a pair of black-rimmed glasses and held a newspaper in his hand. It was obvious that he was reading it. Dressed in ordinary home clothes, the old man looked very ordinary. There was nothing special about his appearance. However, Chi-Yu sensed a special aura from him. It was the aura of a commander who commanded thousands of troops. "Dad!" Ming Ming and Jita called out almost at the same time. The old man chuckled and said, "It turns out that my baby daughter is back. Oh, and there's a guest." The old man raised his head, and his eyes fell on Chi-Yu's face. It was a pair of eyes full of wisdom, as deep as a bottomless cold lake. In an instant, Chi-Yu saw many things in his eyes that he could not explain. Perhaps it was because of the aura, he only felt a heat in his chest and back, and his body suddenly revealed a trace of invisible momentum. This warm feeling was very familiar to Chi-Yu. It would only appear when the Kirin pattern appeared. He could not help but be shocked. The seemingly ordinary old man in front of him had only glanced at him, and he had actually stimulated his Kirin aura. To resist it? Chi-Yu was surprised, and so was the old man. From the moment he looked at Chi-Yu, he found that this young man, who looked to be about the same age as his daughter, had an indescribable temperament. The old man had seen countless people, but this was the first time he had seen such a temperament. He thought for a moment, and suddenly realized that this was the temperament of a leader, and he had only seen such a temperament in his old friend of many years. What a special young man. Hello, uncle. Chiyu did not reveal his usual ruffian temperament, and respectfully greeted the old man. The old man smiled and said, "Please take a seat. Are you Jita's friend or Mingming's friend?" "He is my little sister's friend." Jita, who was domineering before, obviously restrained himself after seeing the old man. He stood at the side in a standard military posture and said respectfully. The old man's eyes moved, and he glanced at his daughter next to him. Ming held the old man's hand and added, "Dad, we are just ordinary friends. Do you remember Master Zagru? Chiyu is the person that Master Zagru likes the most." The old man showed a trace of surprise. "Oh, so he is someone that the master likes, then he is not an outsider. It is rare for you and your sister to come back. Sit and chat with me for a while." When the old man sat down, Chiyu followed Jita and his sister to sit down. The old man took off his glasses, put the newspaper to the side, and said to Jita, "Have you explained the matter with Blue Dragon?" Jita's sitting and standing posture were the same, and he said respectfully, "Dad, I have explained it clearly, and await the chief's orders at any time." The old man nodded and said, "That's good. You can go and report tomorrow. I will give him a call first." "Dad, Big Brother finally came back. Why don't you let him stay at home for a few more days, so that we can show our filial piety?" Ming said, with some resentment. The old man smiled indifferently and said, "He is different from you. He is a soldier. As a soldier, he must listen to orders at any time and appear at the position he should be at the fastest speed. No matter what identity, this must be done. Otherwise, how can we soldiers establish our military prestige? Doing his job well is the best way to be filial to me." Jita suddenly stood up and did a standard military salute. "Yes, Chief. I will go and report tomorrow. The army is the most suitable place for me." The old man smiled faintly and said, "All right, you don't need to be liking the army at home. Today you have a good rest. Oh, by the way, I still haven't asked this little brother Chiyu, where does he work?" The old man's words were very polite, but it always brought invisible pressure to Chiyu. The old man's words to Jita just now couldn't help but make him admire him greatly. He quickly replied, "I am the same as Ming at Qingbei University. I'm a freshman." The old man nodded and said with a smile, "Qingbei is not bad. It has sent a lot of talents to our country. Listening to your accent, you should be from the capital." Chiyu nodded and said, "Yes, I have lived in Jingshan district since childhood. Uncle, you can just call me by my name." Ji Ming teased, "Oh, I didn't see it. Chiyu, when did you become so polite?" The old man said, Ming, don't be rude. Chiyu, you're the first boy that Ming brought back, and this lad is very good. You must learn well in Qingbei. In the future, as long as you can find a suitable position for yourself, it can be considered as contributing to the country." Ming said with a smile, "Dad, you just told Big Brother that this is not the army. Why did you bring that back home?" The old man somewhat helplessly said, "You little girl. All right, let's not talk about the country, let's talk about you. How is your studies at Qingbei University?" Ming said, "I am your daughter. How can I be bad? I am a talented girl in the foreign languages department." The old man looked at Chiyu and said, "Then what department did you study?" Chiyu said with some embarrassment, "I studied philosophy." The old man was stunned for a moment. "Philosophy? Then are you going to be a teacher in the future?" When Jita heard that Chiyu studied philosophy, he almost laughed out loud. Although he had never been to an ordinary university, he also knew that philosophy was generally the most hopeless. Chiyu scratched his head and said, "I don't know what I want to do in the future. Right now, I can only take one step at a time." There was a trace of disappointment in the old man's eyes. He thought for a moment and was about to say something when another person walked out from the aisle where he had appeared before. This person was wearing a well-ironed military uniform. As soon as he came out from the aisle, he stood still and said, "Chief, there's a call for you." The old man stood up and said, "You children chat first. I will go pick up a call. Secretarially, get them some fruits or something to eat." "Yes, Chief," secretarially replied emotionlessly. "Secretary? This soldier turned out to be the old man's secretary. Chiyu looked at the tall and upright soldier in front of him and was filled with shock. This soldier, who was called secretary by the old man, had 2 bars and 4 stars on his shoulder, but he was just a secretary. According to normal calculations, a secretary was 3 ranks lower than the chief. In that case, wasn't this old man a general? One must know that general was the highest military rank in the Yanhuang Republic. Even the vice chairman of the Central Military Commission was only at this level. The old man's surname was Ji. His surname was Ji. Oh my God, could it be that 20 years ago, as the commander of the Yanhuang Republic's 1st Special Forces, he led his troops to create one military legend after another and was known as the God of War, the commander-in-chief of the Yanhuang Republic's army, General Ji Changming? The Special Forces was the most outstanding army in the Yanhuang Republic. It could also be said to be the trump card of the entire Yanhuang Republic. All the soldiers in the army were selected special forces from various military regions. Their mission was to complete all kinds of almost impossible missions, maintain the stability of the country, and participate in all the peacekeeping forces of the United Nations. They were the super elites who fought against the terrorists. Mingming obviously saw the surprise in Chiyu's eyes. She laughed and said, "You must have guessed my father's identity. Don't go out and talk about it. I don't want others to know whose daughter I am." Chiyu was still excited. He never thought that he would be a guest at the house of a general, and the most legendary general at that. Not only was Marshal Ji Changming the #1 marshal in the country, but he also had a very high prestige in the world and held the position of vice chairman of the Central Military Commission. What did this mean? No wonder Jita looked down on him. Jita suddenly said, "Little brother, I'll take you to see something." Ming smiled and said, "Brother, why are you here again? Every time a guest of the same age comes to our house, you always take them to see your treasures. You don't even ask if they like it." Jita snorted and said, "Is there a man who doesn't like knives?" "Chiyu, your name is Chiyu, right? Do you want to go and see?" Chiyu took a deep breath and calmed his somewhat excited heart. He glanced at Jita's somewhat provocative eyes and said indifferently, "Of course I'll go. Why not? I also like knives." Ming Ji said, "Then you guys go. I'll chat with Dad later." Under Jita's lead, Chiyu followed him into the corridor. The corridor was not considered long. After passing through 2 doors, the 2 of them came to a spacious room. This was an extremely large room, at least 100 square meters. The room seemed very spacious. Other than a computer and a bed, there was nothing else. The floor of the room was very familiar to Chiyu. It was the same floor as Hai Ruyue's training room. "Didn't you want me to see your knife?" Chiyu looked at Jita calmly. Perhaps Ming Ji could not see it, but how could he not see it? Jita called him out alone. It was not as simple as just looking at the weapon. Jita casually closed the door. Chiyu clearly saw that the ordinary-looking wooden door was 3 times thicker than an ordinary door. Jita said indifferently, "Brat, remember what I said in front of Qingbei University? If you want to chase after my sister, you must first defeat me. Although I don't know why Ming wants to follow you and even let you go home with us, I don't want to see you by her side in the future. From the first time I saw you, I could tell from your flickering gaze that you're not a good person. I don't care about anything else, but if you want to get close to my sister, you can't. I called you over mainly to give you a warning. In the future, I don't want to see you and my sister together." Chiyu looked at Jita coldly. A ruffian also has a ruffian's dignity. He knew that Jita looked down on him and did not want to explain anything. The man did not explain, so he replied without hesitation, "What if I say no?" Jita's eyes lit up. "No? Do you think you can say this word in front of me?" Chiyu smiled coldly. "What if I insist on saying no? What will you do? Beat me to death? Or break my legs?" Jita clenched his huge fist. "The soundproofing of this room is very good. If you defeat me, you can say this word. Otherwise, scram further away." Although Chiyu knew that he was not Jita's opponent, but as a man, his heart was already boiling. He said coldly, "Wicked, I have tolerated you for a long time. If you want to fight, then come." Jita was stunned for a moment. "What did you call me? Damn it, people in the army said that I can't be wicked, not wicked." Chiyu looked at him provocatively. I called you wicked. So what? Are you going to lick me? Although he was impulsive, it was not that he did not consider it carefully. Indeed, he knew that he was far from being a match for the big man in front of him. But he was very clear that in the house of a general, Jita would not kill him no matter how angry he was. Since that was the case, what was the harm in fighting? At worst, he would lose and be beaten up by him. With his Ink Kirin's super recovery ability, it would not take long for him to recover. In a situation where his life was not in danger, how could Chiyu be afraid? Fine. Jita was so angry that he laughed. His body moved slightly, and he whipped his leg towards Chiyu. The whipping leg did not feel as powerful as the roundhouse kick, but Uncle Zhou had explained in detail to Chiyu that real masters rarely used roundhouse kicks. Although the roundhouse kick was more powerful, it would also expose the weak side of one's joints to the opponent. In a fight between masters of the same level, it was easy for the opponent to take advantage of this flaw. Although the whipping leg was less powerful, it would directly hit the opponent's joints where the joints were the hardest. Jita's seemingly casual kick was definitely not something that Yin Xiaoyi could compare with. Before his leg even reached Yin Xiaoyi, it had already brought about a gust of wind that was as sharp as a blade. To be able to instantly form a gust of wind at such a close distance, it could be seen how powerful his kick was. With Chiyu's speed, he did not even have a chance to dodge. Seeing the kick coming towards him, he immediately shouted, "Come." Both of his palms met Jita's attack. In the afternoon, Chiyu had relied on his lightning ability to generate electricity and instantly paralyze Yin Xiaoyi, allowing him to achieve victory in an instant. Now that he was facing Jita, he had no choice but to use the little Qilin cloud energy he had. Moreover, it was double. The moment Jita's leg arrived in front of Chiyu, his palms had already stood up. There was a red ball of light in the center of his left palm and a purple ball on the right. Jita only felt a burning sensation and a numbing sensation coming from his legs. His momentum suddenly weakened a little, and then it bombarded on Chiyu's palms. Jita's strength was still more fierce than Chiyu had imagined. He only felt a strong force coming from his palms, and his arms were suddenly shocked. Jita's leg directly hit his chest, and his whole body flew up and violently hit the wall not far behind him. Fortunately, when Chiyu shouted the 9 words incantation, he simultaneously mobilized the 2 abilities of wind and water to protect his chest. Although his chest felt stuffy, his bones did not break. Just one kick, Chiyu's thundercloud force had been exhausted. Although it was barely blocked, he could not help but feel shocked. Today he had seen Modi's leg, but the strength of Modi's leg was absolutely not as overbearing and fierce as Jita's. It was a huge force that was almost impossible to resist. Jita did not pursue, and there was a trace of surprise in his eyes. "So you're also a paranormal. No wonder you dare shout at me. However, I have seen many paranormal, and your strength is not enough to say no to me. I just used 30% of my strength in that kick, and the next one will increase it to 50%. If you can still block it, then you are a man, not a coward." The burning pain in his chest made Chiyu's mind clear. Jita's strength was something he had never seen before, and this invisible pressure was only brought to him by Hai Ryue after a nature mutation. 30% of his strength was already so terrifying. Now that he had lost the thundercloud force, how was he going to resist 50% of his strength? Jita did not give Chiyu too much time to think. With a cold snort, he took a step forward with his left foot and lifted his right leg like lightning. His movement was exactly the same as before, and it was another whip kick towards Chiyu. In the face of absolute strength, Chiyu's half-baked method of deflecting the force would not be of any use. At this moment, his heart was filled with grief and indignation, not only because he was looked down upon by his opponent, but also because he was sad about his own weakness. Seeing Jita's kick coming towards him, he only had enough time to move his body to the side, and once again use his hands to block Jita's leg. Something strange happened. Chiyu was shocked to find that the wind brought about by Jita's kick was not rushing towards him, but instead, it produced a suction force that pulled his body towards Jita's leg, like a moth flying into a flame. Jita's goal was very simple: just as Chi Yu had imagined. Of course, he did not want to kill Chi Yu, but for the sake of his sister, he wanted to teach Chi Yu a lesson that would last forever. At this moment, the disdainful expression on his face was even more obvious. From the fact that Chi Yu's body no longer emitted that strange light from before, he knew that Chi Yu could no longer block his attack. The leg arrived. Just as that leg, which was like a steel pillar, swept toward Chi Yu's arms, suddenly, the shadow behind Chi Yu, which was cast on the floor by the light in the room, moved. Immediately after, in that instant, Chi Yu clearly felt a turbulent flow of heat within his body, and it abnormally surged into his right arm. His left arm subconsciously retreated, and his right palm swept out, directly hitting Jita's calf. With a muffled bang, Chi Yu was surprised to find that the huge impact that he had imagined did not come. Jita's kick, which was certain to succeed, had actually been blocked by his own right palm. Jita's heart was filled with shock. In that instant, when Chi Yu's right palm hit his calf, he clearly felt as if he had kicked an iron plate. The violent rebounding force actually caused his right leg to withdraw faster than when he had kicked out, and under the effect of the rebounding force, he even took a step back. 50% of his strength. In the army, there are only a handful of people who could block a kick with 50% of his strength, but this ruffian in front of him had only used one palm to shake off the force of his leg. What did this prove? Just as Jita was a little stunned, the Chi Yu in front of him suddenly changed. His originally black eyes suddenly turned black and silver. He clenched his right fist and made a forward punch, fiercely punching in Jita's direction. This was not under Chi Yu's control. He suddenly found that his body seemed to have changed, and a familiar voice in the depths of his heart roared, "Kirin's dignity cannot be violated." Kirin's arm break the firmament. In that instant, Chi Yu's somewhat messy hair stood up, and his whole body emitted a layer of black aura. His eyes flashed with a strange demonic light, and the black and silver light passed through his fist, intertwining with each other and condensing into a beam of light as thick as an arm, and went straight for Jita's chest. Jita's calm face suddenly showed a trace of fear, because he suddenly found that the air around his body seemed to have solidified, and his huge body was unexpectedly enveloped by a huge pressure, and the invisible momentum forced him to actually have no choice but to fight. "Get out of the way!" Chi Yu roared, and a black and silver shadow appeared behind him. Although it was only a flash, in an instant his momentum was instantly raised to the limit. Boom! Whether it was Chi Yu or Jita, before the black and silver light exploded, neither of them could have imagined such an outcome. The entire building shook violently because of this simple forward punch, and the huge roar could probably be clearly heard in the entire neighborhood. Jita fell to the ground and looked at the big hole in the wall with a diameter of 1 meter, his face as pale as paper. In that instant, the momentum that had locked onto him suddenly fluctuated, and he was shaken to the side by a step. Then, the mixed black and silver light had already brushed past him, bombarding the wall a few meters behind him. Jita's attack was not his strongest point. His strongest point was actually his defense, but after seeing the effect of Chi Yu's attack, he was very clear that even if he used 120% of his strength, he might not be able to defend against such an attack. Moreover, because he looked down on Chi Yu before, he did not even gather all his strength to fight with Chi Yu. Chi Yu was also stunned, because he did not know what was going on at all. Before that familiar voice disappeared, it only said one sentence: "Kirin's strongest point is always his right arm." With a bang, the door was violently smashed open, and the previous secretary rushed in. Although he was already a senior colonel, his movements were still very agile. No matter how good the room's soundproofing was, it was impossible for the outside to not hear the sound that shocked the entire neighborhood. The secretary saw the big hole in the wall at a glance, and his pupils immediately contracted, and he pointed the miniature pistol in his hand at Chi Yu without hesitation. Ming Ming entered the room behind him, and when she saw the scene in front of her, she could not help but be stunned. At this moment, Jita was just getting up from the ground, and he hurriedly said, "Uncle Lee, it's fine, it's fine." There was a questioning look in Secretary Lee's eyes, but Jita had already walked a few steps to Chi Yu's side, put his arm around his shoulder, and said, "I was just sparring with this brother." The shock in Secretary Lee's eyes could not be concealed. "Shout, did you lose?" Jita said a little awkwardly, "Yes. I didn't expect Brother Chi Yu to be so strong. It's fine." Secretary Lee smiled bitterly. "I'm afraid at least 100 people will come here in less than 2 minutes." He was not wrong at all. As soon as he finished speaking, there was already a series of knocks on the door, and to Chi Yu's great surprise, he actually saw an armed helicopter from the room's window. 10 minutes later, when the old man had dealt with everything with a profound look in his eyes, and the house was restored to peace, Chi Yu was still a little sluggish. He was not surprised by the sudden appearance of the special forces. After all, the troops protecting a chief must be the elite of the elite. His sluggishness was because of himself. The simple words of the Chilean arm appearing in the skybreaker had brought him a great shock. "Sit down, Chi Yu." The old man returned to the hall with a smile, and sat down on the sofa of the main seat, as if nothing had happened before. Only Chi Yu, Ming Ming, Jida, and the old man were left in the hall. The eyes of Ming Ming's family were all focused on Chi Yu, making him feel uncomfortable. After hearing the old man's greeting, he walked to Ming Ming and sat down. "As expected of the king of the Zodiac guardian gods, you once again let me see the magic of our guardian of the East." The old man's eyes showed a light of admiration. Chi was shocked, you know. As he said, he also glanced at Ming Ming next to him. The old man nodded and said, "When I first met Master Zagru, he told me. Moreover, in our country's military, there has always been a special force, and many of their members are from the Guardian of the East. In a sense, the purpose of the Guardian of the East and our army is the same. We are all protecting our motherland. Only by helping each other can we maximize our strength, and also make our Yanhuang Republic more stable and stronger." Ming Ming whispered in Chi Yu's ear, "Only my father and a few senior officials of the Yanhuang Republic know of our existence." The old man smiled and said, "From my own point of view, I admire you people who have been silently protecting the country. So on behalf of the country, I thank you, and I am willing to represent the country to give you all the help you need. I will pretend that what happened just now did not happen, and if De has offended you, I apologize on his behalf." Chi Yu quickly stood up and said, "Uncle, there is nothing between me and Brother Jita. We are just learning from each other." Speaking of this, his left hand subconsciously touched his right arm. Kirin's arm. What gave his Kirin's arm such a tyrannical ability?